When the apocalypse started, the protagonist put together a group and created a safe zone, but everything changed because of these wide-open legs here. They rescued a woman, and of course it was because she's very kind. The problem is she was an enemy infiltrator and opened the gates during the night. Now he was hanging there, about to become zombie food, while his girlfriend was clinging to another guy. She laughs in his face, those friends who helped him so much. Now they were lying on the ground, and in the end, all of this is the protagonist's fault, and those beautiful legs. Now the most he can do is curse her and wish her a miserable death. But the hottie doesn't care, since she's got the fat guy's protection. So the fat guy just thanks him for the supplies and presses the button, making the protagonist fall into a cage full of hungry zombies. He wanted to have a taste of the hottie but ended up becoming zombie food. In his final moments, he cursed and thought that if he had another chance he'd get revenge on all of them. Then he opened his eyes in another place. Those legs were open for him again. He had barely opened his eyes and the bitch was already telling him not to forget the bride's 400,000. But this time things will be different. It won't just be pretty legs that will fool him this time. Actually, I think in the future, pretty legs will hook him again. But who doesn't fall for something like that can throw the first stone. He already wanted to choke her, but that wouldn't be fun. So today he just kicked her out. This caught the girl by surprise, since before he was always like a little lapdog, but now he's a big dog and you can expect revenge. He has 1 month before the apocalypse begins, and this time there's something different. The system appeared to him, and there will even be rewards. He can trade points for overpowered supply boxes and body enhancements. To start, he goes straight to the food app. He ordered the best meal of his life. In his past life, he didn't eat anything decent for years. Now he's going to devour some good food. Suddenly his phone rings. It was the hottie with the big legs friend calling to annoy him. The protagonist just tells her to spend 5 minutes with P. Diddy with the clock stopped and hangs up on her. He let out all the resentment he had been holding in his soul. Now he needs to think about how to buy land and build a fortress. So that same day he goes to a real estate agency. The clerk seems very attentive, but soon the manager shows up to bother. He starts scolding the girl in front of everyone and tells her to go help unload the truck. She even tries to say she has a client, but the man says she shouldn't waste time on a broke guy. He even says that if he manages to buy a single bathroom, he'll do a live eating shit. The protagonist laughs and says he'll make sure he finds some nice fresh ones later. Then pulling out his card, he's here to buy land. Everyone is shocked since that's very expensive. The girl keeps helping him well and asks him to follow her. She shows up with a bunch of paperwork about land, asking him to check it, but he says he has some requirements, and if they're not met, he doesn't want it. The land he needs must be near mountains and fresh water, preferably running water. It would be good if it had large factories too. The girl finds it strange, but says she'll think of something. Suddenly the manager says there's land in the East District that meets the requirements, but of course the guy wouldn't have the money to buy that. Jiao Xiaoyong asks if it really has everything he needs there, and the answer is yes, but the girl warns that the factories weren't finished. Even so, the protagonist says he's going to buy that land. He tells the girl to be quick because there's someone waiting to eat fresh shit, and it really was paid. The manager went crazy that he paid 300,000 for land, where the factories weren't finished. So before leaving, he says he hopes he puts on a good performance in the live. The customers who were in the store say they'll record the scene, and another even says he ate lobster last night and asks if he wants some. And just like that, the first part of the system's mission was completed, and of course he used the bride money for that. Suddenly the big guy from his past life walks past the protagonist. He wonders what he's doing here, but when he looks ahead he sees his manager eating that. You can bet your next big guy, revenge is on the way.
Nice.
The scene then shifts to Kui Jing, who gets a call from Xu Xiang telling her Xiaoyang went to the real estate company. That instantly grabs her attention. Her first question is how Xiaoyang could afford land, and Xu Xiang tells her he probably used the money saved for their marriage. Kui Ping is furious when she hears her money was used for his own plans. Instead of calming her down, her friend tells her to go ask Xiaoyang herself. Meanwhile, Xiaoyang is thinking about his next move. The real problem is money. He needs a lot of it for supplies and to build his base. His thoughts are cut off by loud pounding at the door. It's not the police, just those two annoying women, both mad about how he used Kui Jing's money. Xiaoyang is confused and asks what this is about. Kui Jing doesn't let him explain. She accuses him of using her money to buy land, then even claims the land belongs to her. Xiaoyang thinks the whole thing is absurd. He throws a stack of cash at her and makes it clear he'd never spend a woman's money. Then he reveals he already knows she's been secretly dating Xu Qiang. That completely stuns her. Her so-called best friend jumps in and tries to smooth it over, saying it's just a misunderstanding between a couple. Xiaoyang doesn't buy it and calls Kui Jing out for cheating on him with her sugar daddy. He shuts the door in her face and tells them to leave. Even then, Kui Jing isn't upset about what she did. She only cares about how he found out. Her friend is shocked too. She had no idea about the secret relationship, and she's disgusted that it was with old man Xu Qiang. Even she realizes they have no way to pressure Xiaoyang now, so they'll need another plan later. The reason is simple. She's been waiting for her own chance. Now that Xiaoyang and Kui Jing are fighting, she wants to steal him for herself. Leaving those two behind, Xiaoyang heads to the unfinished factory. The construction team leader says the place needs a lot of renovation, plus full defense systems, so the project will take time. With all the defenses Xiaoyang wants, even the crew thinks it's over the top. Still, he orders them to finish everything in 1 month. The leader says that's impossible with their current manpower. Then he adds that it could be done faster, if Xiaoyang pays more. To rush the work, they'll need at least 20 million yuan. Xiaoyang doesn't flinch. He just asks if that's the real number. The leader says they'll also need 5 million upfront to start. Xiaoyang agrees and says he'll transfer the money within a week as long as they begin right away. The leader is left speechless. Xiaoyang also promises that if he fails to pay, he'll transfer the land to them to cover the loss. With that, the deal is set. But then their talk is interrupted by Kuijing's friend. She walks over acting close to him and grabs his arm, asking what he's doing there. Xiaoyang is already annoyed. In his past life, she helped Kuijing take his family's property. He plans to deal with her later, but for now, he asks why she's here. She ignores the question and asks if this is the land he bought, wondering if he plans to build a villa on it. Done being polite, Xiaoyang pulls away and says it's none of her business. That only makes her angrier. She can't believe he's treating her so coldly. Xiaoyang turns back to the workers and tells them to make the gate area wider. Ignored again, she gets frustrated. She knows Kuijing's relationship with him is falling apart, so she still thinks she has a chance. Back at his apartment, Xiaoyang tries raising money by using his house as collateral. Even that won't cover the upfront payment, so he starts thinking of bigger scams. Since the apocalypse is coming anyway, he even considers selling the same place to several buyers. His quiet moment is broken by an old man pounding on the door and yelling for him to open up. It turns out to be his wealthy neighbor, Grandpa Li, who already owns the first 2 floors and now wants Xiaoyang's apartment too. In the old timeline, Xiaoyang kept this place because he thought it would be his future wedding home. But after everything that happened, and with Grandpa Li constantly bothering him, he starts thinking differently. Grandpa Li scolds him for going out partying, but Xiaoyang flatly denies it. Instead of arguing, Xiaoyang suddenly agrees to sell the apartment. That instantly changes the old man's mood. He's shocked to hear Xiaoyang say yes. But Xiaoyang says there's one condition. His new place won't be ready for 6 months, so he wants 5 million upfront to pay off his loan first. If Grandpa Li refuses, Xiaoyang is ready to end the talk right there. At the last second, the old man agrees, but wants a contract so neither side has problems later. That doesn't bother Xiaoyang at all, especially since he knows Grandpa Li won't live long enough to matter, so things are going well. He'll soon get 5 million from Grandpa Li, and with the 3 million he already has lined up, he now has 8 million total. And since he finished the first mission requirement, he can finally claim the reward. Next, Xiaoyang tears through the grocery store, loading up supplies at full speed. People around him start wondering if something is wrong with him. Their reaction makes sense. He's pushing around 7 carts packed with goods. Some customers think someone scared him with rumors about the end of the world. Xiaoyang ignores them and completes the second task. Now he has to decide how to spend his points. He could raise his stats, but the better choice is the protagonist's toolbox. So he picks it without hesitation and spends everything. A glowing mystery box appears. Inside is a powerful space ring that can store items in a frozen dimension. Xiaoyang is more than happy with a reward like that. Now he won't have to worry about his food spoiling in storage. But the system doesn't stop there. It raises the goal from 1 year of supplies to 10 years if he wants more points. His huge shopping spree draws attention, and security shows up to handle the disturbance. Yang Tao is shocked to see Xiaoyang there. Back in school, Yang Tao was one of the bullies who picked on weaker students, including Xiaoyang. Now he's shouting at him again, ordering Xiaoyang to put everything back instead of causing trouble. Xiaoyang just smiles and says Yang Tao hasn't changed at all. He says he'll pay for everything, but Yang Tao assumes he's bluffing and demands immediate payment. An hour later, 4 cashiers finally finish scanning all the items. The bill comes to nearly 57,000 yuan. Yang Tao immediately orders Xiaoyang to pay. Xiaoyang calmly swipes his card. To Yang Tao's shock, the payment goes through. Humiliated, Yang Tao starts to leave with his men, but Xiaoyang stops him. He says Yang Tao was rude to him for no reason, so he wants a proper apology, or he'll return everything. That makes Yang Tao furious. He thinks Xiaoyang is clearly picking a fight. But with cameras everywhere, the other shoppers side with Xiaoyang and pressure Yang Tao to apologize before he ends up viral online. Xiaoyang calmly reminds his old classmate that saying sorry won't kill him. He even says an apology might make him buy 10 times more. Yang Tao thinks that's nonsense, so Xiaoyang decides to prove it by showing his account balance. Then he swipes the card again. Yang Tao is stunned. He can't believe Xiaoyang has 7 million just sitting in his account. With no way to save face, Xiaoyang forces the embarrassed Yang Tao to apologize. The bully finally gives in and lowers his head. To make it worse, Xiaoyang pats his head and tells him not to be rude for no reason. As Yang Tao leaves, he asks why Xiaoyang bought so much stuff. Xiaoyang brushes him off. It's none of his business, and he's working on something big. Now much more respectful, the manager says huge orders like this would need a wholesaler. That gets Xiaoyang's attention, and he asks if Yang Tao knows any. Yang Tao says yes and brings up their old leader, Zhang Shengjie, who now works in wholesale. Yang Tao even calls him about a major client. Xiaoyang is surprised this jerk is still following the same boss even after school, and he wonders how much money they've made together. A little later, Yang Tao brings him to his boss. Then a car speeds up and stops right beside them. Out steps the same arrogant guy from school, Zhang Shengjie. He wants to meet this big client right away, and Yang Tao reminds him Xiaoyang was their old classmate. But so much time has passed that Shengji doesn't remember him. After staring at him for a moment, he finally figures it out. It's the kid who always stood up to their group and never followed orders. Shengji tries to mock Xiaoyang's clothes as fake, and Xiaoyang plays dumb about the brand. That reaction makes Zhang Shengji think he came for nothing. This kid can't be a real big client. He literally kicks Yang Tao and claims he can tell who's rich just by looking at them. Xiaoyang mocks him back, saying his aura is too weak to scare anybody. Provoked, Zhang Shengji grabs him by the clothes. Xiaoyang doesn't flinch and repeats himself. Funny enough, Shengji only gets mad mad about being called dumb. He completely ignores the part about acting superior. Yang Tao jumps in to calm things down, but gets kicked again for interrupting. Still furious, Zhang Shengji warns Xiaoyang he won't leave in one piece unless he buys a huge amount of goods from him. Xiaoyang stays calm and shows him his bank balance. The boss is stunned. Xiaoyang is ready to spend 1 million on the spot and says that's only the deposit. The full order will be 5 million. Now interested, Zhang Shengji asks what kind of goods he wants. Xiaoyang says anything people can eat or drink. Even with a huge customer in front of him, the greedy boss starts thinking about dumping nearly expired food on him. At the warehouse, Zhang Shengji shows him the stock and offers 10% off if he takes everything there. But Xiaoyang only cares about quality. He checks one bag and quickly exposes the problem. Most of the goods are close to expiring. Zhang Shengji didn't expect Xiaoyang to know this business so well, so he raises the offer to 50% off for the whole pile. Xiaoyang refuses again. If he's spending 5 million, he wants top quality goods. Still, he does say he has a use for the expired stock, which confuses the boss. Since the discount is already out there, Xiaoyang uses it in the negotiation. He wants all the expired goods too, but he'll pay for them in a month. Zhang Shengji agrees, though he worries Xiaoyang might back out once the food fully expires. Xiaoyang offers his house as collateral, which makes the boss even more curious about his plan. Xiaoyang isn't worried at all. He gives Shengji one hint. Within days, even expired food will become a luxury. That sends a chill through the boss, but Xiaoyang refuses to explain. He closes the deal and says he'll send the delivery address later. Then Xiaoyang gets a call. Someone wants to buy his house. He finishes up at the warehouse and leaves the rest to them. As he goes, Yang Tao wonders if they were the ones who got played. Even the boss can't figure out how this normal-looking kid spends millions so casually. In the next scene, the buyer sends a 400,000 deposit for Xiaoyang's house and agrees to let him stay there for 3 more months. Xiaoyang clearly doesn't care what happens later, because the world is about to fall into chaos anyway. He's surprised by how desperate the old man is. The man didn't even inspect the house before paying, so Xiaoyang asks why. The old man says it's for his granddaughter, who needs to transfer schools and needs a new place to live. They like the house, so they made an offer. Xiaoyang jokingly wonders if he should raise the price after hearing that, and the poor old man immediately gets scared. But Xiaoyang keeps the original price and assures him he won't do that. They sign the contract and the sale is done. The old man thanks him warmly and says he won't bother him anymore. But the moment hits Xiaoyang hard. People like this old man and his granddaughter probably won't survive the coming apocalypse. Wanting to do one last good thing, he stops him and asks for their current address. Next, Xiaoyang returns to the construction site to check on his place. The first payment already cleared, but the captain is hoping for the second. Xiaoyang says it's coming soon and asks how the work is going. It's about 80% finished. The doors and structure are built for solid defense, and the warehouse has already been cleaned up. Satisfied with the progress, Xiaoyang tells Zhang Shengji to send all the goods right away. Soon the supplies arrive and get stacked neatly. Xiaoyang even pays each worker 2,000 just for the labor. While they celebrate, he helps sort everything, making sure the perishables are placed properly. By evening, all the sorting is done. Xiaoyang looks over everything with pride. At last, he's gathered 10 years worth of supplies and earns 20 more points. He opens the system shop again and sees another box available. One good thing about the system is that he can gain powers before the zombie outbreak starts. He spends 10 points on the new mystery box and gets an ability called Mind's Eye. It lets him sense hostility and bad intentions in people. That'll be very useful in the apocalypse. Then the system gives him a new task, armed to the teeth. He now needs to collect a huge stash of weapons, which is exactly what Xiaoyang wanted anyway. That night, the story moves to a darker place, the black market. Xiaoyang walks through the crowd, listening to people talk about antiques. All kinds of shady people are here, including Xuqiang, who's arguing with a seller over the price of a bracelet. Watching him buy fake jewelry only confirms Xiaoyang's opinion. This guy's a scammer, and Kui Ping has no idea she's wearing fakes. While looking around, Xiaoyang finally spots something useful. He stops at a stall selling melee weapons and asks for the real good stuff. The seller suggests a knife sharpener or maybe a baton if he wants something blunt. Xiaoyang says he needs something even tougher than that. The shop owner assumes he's not serious until Xiaoyang transfers 200,000 straight into his account, proving he's here to buy. Now interested, the seller tells him to keep watching the stall while they go talk in private. In the storage room, the man shows him some homemade guns for 2,000 yuan each, but they're too weak to really kill anything. Xiaoyang rejects them. He needs weapons for zombies, not toys. The seller then shows him a replica revolver worth around 5,000 yuan. Again, Xiaoyang isn't impressed, especially after already paying 200,000 up front. That advance shocks the seller because Xiaoyang says the 200 grand is just 10% of what he plans to spend. He's ready to drop a full 2 million on weapons. That insane number leaves the seller wondering what kind of life this kid lives. Xiaoyang tells him to stop wasting time and keep going. Ready to show the real goods? The man carefully seals up his place to make sure nobody is watching. He tells Xiaoyang he came to the right person, because he can connect him with a supplier for top-quality weapons. The real deal will happen in a couple of days. When Xiaoyang leaves the storage room, he runs into Shuxiang again. The guy figures Xiaoyang must have sold a bunch of stuff on the black market to start living well. Xiaoyang ignores the bait and decides to test his new skill on this fool. Using Mind's Eye, he checks the seller first and sees no bad intent. Shuxiang, though, is full of it. So Xiaoyang fires back, saying Kuijing matches those fake bracelets. Both are worth the cheap junk he bought. That one line instantly sets Shuxiang off. When the seller asks if they know each other, Xiaoyang says it's better to call him an enemy. Now that they're doing business, the seller sides with Xiaoyang and offers to rough the old creep up for bothering him. Xiaoyang leaves pleased, while Shuxiang is almost in tears as a group of tough men walk toward him with a baton. They throw him to the ground and beat him until he's covered in bruises. That only makes him hate Xiaoyang more, and he swears revenge. 2 days later, a truckload of weapons arrives for Xiaoyang, finishing the mission and giving him a bonus reward too, a physical enhancement potion. It has a X2 effect, so it's better than the one sold in the store. Not wasting a second, he loads the syringe and injects himself. Right after, he sees his strength pass the average man's 5 points. He's now at 7, a 40% boost in power. Then he checks the store, which only offers a survival kit and another physical enhancement potion. Wanting even more strength, he buys the potion and injects it too. Now Xiaoyang reaches 8 strength points, giving him 60% more power than an average man. To test it, he grabs a hardened rod. Xiaoyang kicks it hard enough to bend it and crack the nearby wall. With power like this, zombies are in trouble. After that, he stores all his weapons in the spatial ring, pulling every crate into the space inside. Looking over his situation, Xiaoyang knows the apocalypse starts in 2 days. He needs to handle any loose ends now, which makes him think of the old man he met. Even after being betrayed in the old timeline, Xiaoyang still wants to help people when he can, so he plans to give that family enough supplies to survive. After that, it's up to them. Soon, Xiaoyang reaches the old man's home. It took some effort to find the place, and climbing the stairs tells him just how hard the old man's life must be. As he stands at the door, he decides to unload the supplies first to make things easier. The ring brings out the food and crates outside, and then he knocks. The old man comes over nervously, apologizing about the rent, but freezes when he sees Xiaoyang there. He's even more shocked by all the supplies the kid brought. Xiaoyang says there's no time to explain, and they need to move everything inside fast. Once the crates are inside, the old man is amazed by Xiaoyang's stamina. Xiaoyang looks around and decides the apartment is secure enough. He warns the old man to tell no one what he's about to hear, then says they need to use these supplies carefully because the world is about to change. Then he notices a photo of the old man's granddaughter. To his shock, it's Shanshan, a friend he made during the apocalypse. He asks to confirm it, and her grandfather is stunned that Xiaoyang already knows her name. Worried, Xiaoyang asks where she is. She's in her hometown, studying and getting ready to transfer schools. In the original timeline, he met her after she was left with deep regret over her grandfather's death. The old man died saving her, and Xiaoyang refuses to let that happen again. First, he tells the grandfather he can't move into his house. The old man panics, but Xiaoyang calms him and explains the truth. The world ends tomorrow, zombies are coming, and nowhere will be safe. That's why they need to pick Shanshan up first and decide where to stay after. The old man can barely process all that at once. Still, Xiaoyang has to make him understand. He compares it to a famine, where food will become the biggest problem. Then he proves something is wrong by pulling all the furniture and crates back into his ring. Shanshan's grandfather is speechless until Xiaoyang says he has powers and can see the future. That's why they need to go to Shanshan's school right now. Next, they're in the car racing to the school. When they arrive, Xiaoyang asks for her dorm and starts searching with the old man. They find Shanshan getting slapped around by a jealous girl over some boy who likes her. Even though Shanshan keeps saying she has nothing to do with him, the girl hits her again for making excuses. The group keeps bullying Shanshan for acting like she doesn't care. Luckily, her grandpa rushes over to find her. The helpless old man tells the girl to let her go, but a few violent teens step in and threaten him for interfering. For his granddaughter's sake, the old man charges in anyway and faces the 3 boys. One of them raises a baseball bat at his head, but before it lands, Xiaoyang catches his arm and mocks them for acting like gangsters when they're just kids. The punks laugh at him, but Xiaoyang answers with one brutal kick that drops the first guy on the spot. The other 2 immediately wonder if he's some kind of pro. They still try to surround him and Xiaoyang lets them. The guy with the club swings from his blind side, but Xiaoyang ducks it easily. With his boosted body, his reactions are on another level. He grabs the attacker's collar and slams him into the ground, knocking him out cold. The leader then tries to sneak in with a knife, but Xiaoyang turns with him and drives a hard kick just under his thigh. The pain is so bad the guy goes down instantly. Just like that, Xiaoyang puts the last idiot to sleep. Then he walks over to the girl who bullied Shanshan. One hard slap tells her the fight is over. She can barely process what happened. Xiaoyang grabs the other girl and yanks her hair, then presses a blade to her neck, making her tear up in fear. A quick swing follows, and she screams. For a second, even Shanshan thinks he just killed her. But no, he only chopped off her hair. She screams that she'll never forgive him, but Xiaoyang couldn't care less and says he did her a favor by taking off the extra weight. He even tells her she'll understand in a few days. Then he tells Shanshan they're leaving. She doesn't know where they're going, but follows anyway. Soon they're driving to a new place. Her grandpa explains what's happening, calling it a famine-type disaster. Shanshan is doubtful and thinks he got tricked by another scam. He insists it's real. Watching them bicker like this makes Xiaoyang smile. He's glad she's still happy in this life. Xiaoyang tells her he was the one who warned her grandpa. This version of Shanshan has no idea who he is, so he introduces himself properly. She thanks him for saving her from the bullies, but Xiaoyang isn't worried about them. They likely won't survive what's coming. Shenshan is still confused about what's about to happen. Xiaoyang explains he only called it a famine so her grandpa could understand easier. That gives her a little hope, until he replaces that word with apocalypse, and crushes it right away. He says the news should already be showing signs of chaos. Shanshan checks her phone and finds a bunch of videos about some rabies-like sickness is making people lose control and attack others. The more clips she watches, the more scared she gets. The infected look terrifying. Xiaoyang realizes he was right. The apocalypse is almost here. Shanshan learns that tomorrow, toxic smog will officially break out and cover several provinces. The smog will permanently change living things. A huge part of the population will turn into zombies right away, and after that, they'll hunt down anyone still normal. And once those survivors die, they rise too, making the horde even bigger. At least Shanshan knows what zombies are, but this is still too crazy for her to fully believe. Xiaoyang figures she'll accept it soon enough, especially once the world falls apart within a week. For now, they have another problem. Traffic. Even the emergency lane is jammed, which catches Xiaoyang off guard. With the road packed, Shanshan worries zombies will reach them while they're trapped. Xiaoyang tells her it isn't that bad yet since the apocalypse hasn't fully started. Still, even before the main disaster begins, a smaller outbreak could easily happen here. Then a reckless driver forces his way between lanes and slams straight into Xiaoyang's car. That instantly pisses him off, so he blocks the guy from getting into the emergency lane. The driver stops beside them and starts yelling at Xiaoyang. Once they realize it's some spoiled rich guy in a Mercedes, Shanshan's grandpa says to drop it. Xiaoyang disagrees. If this guy drags them out, he's dead. An hour later, traffic finally clears and the issue seems over. But Shanshan spots that same driver racing up again, trying to cut in. Even Xiaoyang is shocked by how stubborn this guy is. The idiot rushes ahead just to taunt them. Shanshan's grandpa says it's too dangerous and tells Xiaoyang not to sink to his level. But Xiaoyang no longer cares about people like this, especially with the apocalypse about to wipe away any rules. So he rams the man's car, sending it spinning into the roadside. The spoiled driver stumbles out of the car and instantly calls traffic police, trying to get Xiaoyang arrested. He's the kind of person who never lets a grudge go. In the next scene, the group returns to the facility Xiaoyang has been preparing. Even Shanshan's grandpa is stunned they'll be living here now. Xiaoyang tells them their lives will change forever starting tomorrow, so they should rest while they can. The next day, our boy is relaxing in the sun when Shanshan joins him. For once, she actually slept well after all her classes. Xiaoyang is eager to show her the fortress he built. As he walks her through it, he explains the concrete walls and the remote gate, strong enough that nobody's getting through. He lays down one hard rule. No one enters the fortress without his permission. That makes Shanshan worry about future survivors. Does this mean he'll just leave them outside to die? To answer that, he brings them somewhere else, explaining that disasters bring out people's worst side. Because of that, they have to be careful around others. If they're too kind, it could get them killed. He says he already set up a buffer zone, a temporary shelter for survivors while he's away. Still, he warns them again, never let anyone into the main fortress. After that, he takes them to the food storage area and explains how they'll manage supplies. Once inside the warehouse, he gives them one last check. Using his eye of insight, he reads their intentions. Seeing clear trust from both of them, he's glad they mean well. Next, Xiaoyang summons some weapons and says these will be vital for survival. Grandpa gets a shotgun while Shanshan receives a strong crossbow. He gives them one main warning: never let these weapons fall into someone else's hands. Now back to the system mission. Xiaoyang needs to find his old partner Zhang Qi, also a friend from the original timeline. The hard part is figuring out where he is. Luckily, the system gives him the exact city Zhang Qi is in. He leaves Shanshan and her grandpa in charge and reminds them not to break his rules. Then he heads out to recruit another member for the fortress before the apocalypse fully starts. The scene shifts to a KTV spot, where a group of friends is hanging out and singing karaoke. After a while, they head to the bathroom. There, Zhangqi accidentally bumps into a pretty girl and quickly apologizes. Her boyfriend doesn't care and kicks him anyway. Zhangqi goes flying back and hits the floor, while his friend rushes over to check on him. Four Eyes steps up and squares off with the thug who hit Zhangqi, which only makes the guy madder. He grabs Zhangqi's friend and starts messing with him. Zhangqi begs him to stop and let his friend go. A waiter sees all this happening. He's already sick with a cold, and now this fight breaks out too. He quickly jumps in to stop it. The annoying rich punk acts tough and grabs the waiter too, but the waiter signals the two kids to run. Zhangqi and his friend take the chance and bolt. They make it back to their karaoke room, safe for the moment. The others are shocked to see them rush in like that. Four Eyes explains they bumped into some thug's girl and got beaten for it, and only escaped because the waiter helped them. That gets the other two fired up. They want to go back and beat the guy for messing with their group. Zhangqi calms them down, saying there's no point in looking for more trouble. But things are about to get much worse. That waiter is now beaten bloody, and the rich thug has brought 3 more friends to go after Zhangqi's whole group. He orders his men to grab them at once. Zhangqi and Four Eyes can't fight back, so they immediately crouch down. There's only one guy in their group brave enough to resist, and the second he tries to speak up, the thug leader smashes a bottle over his head. Chen Chong, yes, that's really his name, ends up with blood pouring from his head. The scene switches to Xiaoyang, who pulls up outside the bar, figuring it makes sense that Zhang Qi would be here. Chen Chong is down hard, and with that much blood on the floor, he needs a hospital fast. The thug leader looks to his girl for approval, and she says they should punish the guy who bumped into her, and that puts Zhang Qi next in line for a beating. Out of nowhere, Chen Chong lunges up and tries to attack the thug leader. If another guy hadn't stopped him, he might have crushed his face. The thug leader is shocked a college kid would dare fight back and smashes another bottle over Chen Chong's head. Chen Chong drops again, and his friends cry out in panic. Seeing that sends Zhang Qi into a rage, but he and the others are quickly held down. The last member of their group trembles off to the side. The waiter is barely staying conscious while the thugs keep beating Zhang Qi's group. When he finally swings, he misses completely. Then something changes, the waiter's eyes turn bloodshot, and he throws himself into the fight like a wild animal. He bites one man in the shoulder, horrifying everyone there. The thugs have no clue what just happened or why the waiter suddenly snapped. They rush to hold him down, but he's way too strong. The waiter spins around and bites another thug on the arm. He's fully gone now, overpowering the man and slamming him to the floor. Then to everyone's shock, that same beast is easily pinned by some random guy, who turns out to be Xiao Yang. He steps right in and tells everyone to quit messing around. The thugs are stunned. A second ago, they were getting wrecked by the waiter, and now this one kid has him pinned with no effort. The thug leader demands to know who Xiao Yang is, but Xiao Yang ignores him and asks Zhang Qi if he's been bitten anywhere. Luckily, he hasn't, though he has no idea why Xiao Yang is asking that. Xiao Yang tells him to come with him right now. They need to leave, but the thug leader still isn't done and blocks their way. At the same time, one of his own men starts getting a brutal headache after being bitten. Xiao Yang instantly understands. The infection is spreading fast, and that guy is about to turn. He asks if the bite on his shoulder came from the same rabid waiter. The thug confirms it, but still doesn't get why it matters. Xiao Yang realizes the man was already infected, and with a bite that close to his head, he's finished. Xiao Yang grabs the zombie waiter, throws him into the restroom, and slams the door shut. The thing keeps smashing against it, but zombies at this stage still can't figure out how to open doors. Then Xiao Yang turns back to the thugs. Xiao Yang gets ready to throw down and asks Zhang Qi which one he should hit first. The funny part is Zhang Qi doesn't even know who Xiao Yang is, so he's totally lost. Mad at the kid's attitude, the thug leader charges in to shut him up. Xiao Yang embarrasses him in one move by grabbing his face, then slamming his head into the floor. The infected lackey rushes in next, but Xiao Yang drops him with one hard hit to the face. The guy collapses, and his friend is shocked. One punch shouldn't have done that. Then the fallen thug starts twisting in pain. Xiao Yang tells the rest to come try him too if they need a lesson. Then he turns to Zhang Qi and orders him to take his friends to the private room and wait outside. Zhang Qi doesn't argue and helps his injured friend out. The thug leader and the others stop acting tough once they realize they can't win. But Xiao Yang isn't letting them walk away that easily. He calls the leader a drunken idiot who almost got his brother killed and decides to repay the favor. He shoves the thug inside and locks the door behind him. The thug leader pounds on it, but it's useless. The door's locked from outside. His infected lackey has already turned into a zombie and jumps at the closest target. A moment later, Xiao Yang hears them screaming as they're torn apart. When a staff member comes over, Xiao Yang tells him to secure the door and call the police, saying there's a dangerous rabid flu patient inside. The worker freezes for a second until Xiao Yang yells at him to do it now, so he quickly locks it with a key. After that, Xiao Yang helps Zhang Qi's group get outside. Meanwhile, the staff worry about the noise from the room and repeat what they heard, that there may be a rabid flu patient inside, though nobody knows for sure. Once they hear that, they rush to the security cameras. But the second they see the footage, their faces turn pale. Everyone in that room has become a flesh-eating monster, ripping each other apart, so the staff call the police right away. Luckily, Xiao Yang and the others make it out of the karaoke bar alive. He gets them into the car, and they drive off fast. Zhang Qi is thankful, but he still has no idea who this guy is. Xiao Yang finally introduces himself and says a client hired him to protect them, but he can't reveal who. One of them questions the rabid flu, saying the internet says it isn't real. Xiao Yang reminds them what they just saw and asks if that looked fake too. Four Eyes nervously asks if there's a cure. Xiao Yang says no, and from here things are only going to get worse until the world falls into chaos. Zombie attacks have already started. The infection is spreading fast, though for now it's still a local outbreak. Most infected people are still incubating and will turn soon, so if Zhang Qi and his friends want to survive, they need to follow Xiao Yang exactly. They all agree. Right then, Xiao Yang gets a mission complete message that unlocks new store items, including some supplies he'll need later. The one that catches his eye most is the post-apocalyptic cultivator box. Since all three boxes look useful, he decides to open them back at the fortress. Still, he knows he needs to earn their trust. In the original timeline, Zhang Qi's friends were killed because one of them betrayed the group, and that traitor is still among these three. Now it's basically a game of Among Us to figure out who it is. For now, let's check on Kui Jing. She's terrified of going to the supermarket after seeing the news and wants her supplies delivered straight to her door. Then someone starts banging hard on her door, and Kui Jing panics. She quickly hangs up on Xuxiang. When she looks outside, she finally relaxes. It's just her best friend, who says the first floor neighbor was dragged away by police in an ambulance. Looks like he was infected too, which explains why the whole building feels so tense. Her friend asks about the supplies Xuxiang promised, but they still haven't arrived, so she comes up with another plan. Feed Xuxiang's ego and tell him Xiao Yang has a stockpile of supplies. Kui Jing asks how she knows that, and it turns out her friend had someone spying on him and learned he keeps ordering huge amounts of goods. Kui Jing can't believe her ex knew about the apocalypse early. Her friend pushes her to tell Xuxiang everything so they can steal Xiao Yang's stash and get rich. Back at the fortress, Zhang Qi is stunned. He never expected someone to build a real fortress. Xiao Yang says everyone reacts that way. Shanshan and her grandpa are happy to see him back. He tells them everything is under control and introduces Zhang Qi and the others. He says they'll be staying here from now on, then introduces Shanshan and her grandpa in return. They welcome the newcomers right away since Xiaoyang brought them. Xiaoyang asks Grandpa to show them around and explain the rules. One of the guys immediately asks for weapons to protect themselves. That only makes Xiaoyang more suspicious, since he already knows there's a mole in Zhang Qi's group. Four Eyes tells Yiming to relax. It's way too early to ask for weapons when they haven't earned trust. Xiaoyang says they can have weapons in a few days, but first they need to take care of the injured Chen Chong and help him recover. Inside the fortress, they clean up and change clothes. Yiming is annoyed that his friends stepped in, thinking they would have gotten weapons otherwise. He actually believes they're being kept prisoner instead of protected. But Four Eyes reminds him Xiaoyang saved them, so that doesn't make sense. They're all curious about who Xiaoyang really is, since all they know is that some secret client hired him. Yiming stays hostile for no reason. He's also angry that Chen Chong isn't being treated more directly because of the fear he might be infected. The idiot even thinks Xiaoyang's group wants to harvest their organs, so he says they should strike first. Four Eyes warns that if they're wrong, they'd be betraying the man who saved them. Yiming doesn't care. He wants power and plans to take the fortress for himself. He even says they should get rid of the little girl and the old man while Xiaoyang is gone. Zhang Qi and the other friends stare at him like he's crazy. Realizing that, Yiming quickly laughs it off and says he was just joking, which eases the tension a little. Four Eyes points out again that if Xiaoyang wanted their organs, he wouldn't let them move around so freely. But Yiming is still planning to act alone. He wants the fortress, and thinks being ruthless will help him take it. Later, Xiaoyang meets with Shanshan and her grandpa, who tell him Chen Chong is resting in the infirmary, and everything has been locked down like he ordered. Pleased, Xiaoyang thanks them and tells them to rest while they can, because tomorrow will bring even more trouble. He also warns them to watch Zhang Qi's other two friends closely, since he suspects one may betray them. That night, Xiaoyang goes to the supply warehouse. He opens the system store again and starts with the cultivator box. Then he buys the sugar, oil, and protein supply box, and finally the armed deterrence box. Opening all three gives him 50 corn seeds, a pile of food, and 1,500 rounds of ammo for later. The haul is amazing and gives him a huge edge for what's coming. The next day, more trouble shows up. That rich jerk who swore revenge comes back with his crew to tear the place down. He tells his men to break the gate, but no matter how hard they try, they can't even damage it. Their boss is furious that the gate is that strong, so they pull out heavier stuff and switch to Molotov cocktails, throwing them inside. The fire spreads fast. Shanshan and the others rush to put it out. That only makes her trust Xiaoyang's warning even more. Things really are getting worse. But Xiaoyang never backs down. He grabs a rifle to deal with whoever came for them and heads to the watchtower to see who's outside. Shanshan's grandpa is the first to notice it's the same rich jerk from the highway. The men outside also notice people up in the watchtower. The snob yells for Xiaoyang to come out or he'll burn the whole place down. Staying calm, Xiaoyang tells them they have 5 minutes to leave. That only makes them madder, and they threaten to torch the fortress with 2 crates of Molotovs. Just then, the system gives Xiaoyang a new mission. Grandpa panics and suggests a warning shot. The mission is simple. Wipe out the group attacking the fortress. Xiaoyang knows a warning shot won't stop men like this. They're criminals with no care for anyone else. He takes aim, knowing he can't let them keep threatening innocent people. Then Xiaoyang pulls the trigger. The bullet tears a man's arm apart, and he drops, screaming in pain. Xiaoyang had aimed for the head, but he's rusty with guns and still adjusting. Even so, blowing off the man's arm is enough to break their nerve, and they start running. Xiaoyang knows if he lets them go, they'll just come back tomorrow. So he opens fire and kills them all. A few who make it to the car shove their boss inside, while he screams at the driver to floor it. They try to escape in the car, but Xiaoyang sprays it down with his rifle. The way he handles the weapon makes the old man wonder who this kid really is. It ends badly for the attackers. The car is wrecked, and every one of them is dead. After that, Xiaoyang tells Shanshan's grandpa to have the others clean up. But then he changes his mind. Since the apocalypse is just starting, he decides to leave the bodies outside. Once they turn, they can be used for zombie practice. What Xiaoyang doesn't know is that Xuxiang is also on the way, with Kuijing and her bestie. Kuijing is already annoyed by how her friend keeps flirting with the fat guy. Soon they arrive at the factory. Kuijing wants her friend to come with her, but she suddenly gets nervous and refuses. Kuijing says she has to come, otherwise they won't know which factory belongs to Xiaoyang. When she still refuses, Kuijing drags her out anyway. The two girls head toward the gate, while Xuxiang tells his men to get ready. Once he gets the signal, he'll drive in, and the others will move too. As they walk up, the shady bestie asks why she was forced to come. Kuijing says they're too much alike for her to trust her. The girl claims she's only acting flirty so they can trick Xiaoyang more easily. Then they spot a bunch of bodies on the ground and instantly realize a gunfight happened here. Both freeze in fear and think about turning back, but then figure these people probably came for Xiaoyang's supplies too. That makes them wonder if Xiaoyang died in the shootout. They don't really care, as long as the supplies are still there. They think about calling Xuxiang in, but Kuijing decides they should sneak in first. So the girls approach the main gate, only to find it way too thick and sealed tight to enter. Now they start wondering if Xiaoyang survived. From the tower, Shanshan calls down and asks what they want. The two immediately pretend they're Xiaoyang's friends. Shanshan quickly reports this to Xiaoyang, which makes Kuijing even more annoyed, thinking he's gotten close to another girl. Her friend tells her to stay focused. They're dealing with armed people. Kuijing still trusts Xuxiang to handle them since he brought guns too. The real problem is getting through the gate. Xiaoyang comes over himself and wonders why Kuijing and Wenshuya are here. He immediately uses Eye of Insight to read their intentions. They act sweet and worried, but he can tell they're hiding bad intentions and don't trust him at all. Xiaoyang laughs at the act, then openly reveals that he knows Xuxiang and his men are hiding nearby too. Both women are stunned and have no idea how he found out. He doesn't play along and fires a warning shot. Kuijing and Wenshuya are shocked he's really going this far. Wenshuya keeps calm and tells Kuijing not to panic. They're facing a man with a gun, but Xiaoyang has no plan to kill them quickly. That would be too easy. Suddenly, one of the corpses rises as a zombie, and then the others start changing too. The same rabid flu from the news is bringing the dead back. For Xiaoyang, this is the perfect moment. He wants those two to face a worse end at the hands of zombies. Kuijing and Wenshuya take off running from the monsters chasing them. They rush back towards Xuxiang, who still doesn't know what's happening. Then he sees the zombies charging after them. The two women nearly break down, begging the fat man to save them. Xuxiang never expected to run into infected people out here. He instantly changes plans and orders his men to retreat. He doesn't even try to save the women. Kuijing refuses to die like this. The scheming woman throws her purse at her own best friend, making Wenshuya stumble and crash to the ground. With no way out, Wenshuya is swarmed by the zombies. They rip into her and start feeding. As she's being eaten alive, Wenshuya curses Kuijing and says she'll die just as horribly one day. Kuijing keeps running, convinced she did what she had to do. Watching it all, Xiaoyang earns system points for removing another threat, while Shanshan is horrified. He also gets a new mission, to kill the zombies still wandering near the base. Shanshan can't believe the infection is strong enough to bring the dead back. With that, the apocalypse has truly begun. Xiaoyang tells her more mutations are coming, and infected people can turn even after they die. Knowing everyone needs to hear this, he calls an emergency meeting. In the next scene, the group sits down to plan. Xiaoyang tells everyone to stay alert and seal the place completely. Their bodies need time to adjust to the infection source. If they adapt well, the risk of sudden mutation drops. Even so, Jiangqi is deeply worried about his injured friend. Chen Chong is still in the infirmary, and the infection is slowly getting worse. Outside, the city is falling into chaos. Then the story shifts to Jiang Xingje, who tells his family to stay home while he goes to the warehouse for supplies. He warns them not to open the door for anyone. But right then, someone starts pounding on the door. He signals his family to stay quiet and walks over with a golf club, ready to smash any infected person who gets in. When he sees it's only Yang Tao, he drops his guard. That turns out to be a huge mistake, because Yang Tao brought others with him to beat his boss down. They kick him to the floor while he yells for them to stop. After years of being treated well, Yang Tao still betrays him. Yang Tao snaps back that he was never treated well, he was humiliated and ordered around. Jiang Xingje reminds him he even paid a house down payment for him. But Yang Tao says that means nothing to a rich man who can buy several houses. What he wants now are the warehouse keys. Jiang Xingje refuses, so Yang Tao turns on his family. He grabs the wife by the hair, and their little boy screams at him to let her go. The child can't do much, and Yang Tao slaps him hard anyway. Jiang Xingje roars at him for hurting his wife and son. Yang Tao coldly says they won't get hurt if he cooperates. Next, they force him back to the warehouse. He unlocks it, and they go inside. But Yang Tao is furious to find almost nothing left. The boss explains that Xiaoyang recently bought nearly everything, even the expired food. Hearing Xiaoyang's name, Yang Tao gets an idea. If they rob him instead, they'll have enough supplies for years. Even the boss knows that's a terrible idea. From his last run-in with Xiaoyang, he can tell the guy isn't easy to mess with. He even suspects Xiaoyang knew about the apocalypse before it started, and got ready early. Yang Tao doesn't want to risk himself, so he forces his old boss to handle it. Jiang Xingje is confused until Yang Tao threatens his family. If he can't get Xiaoyang's supplies, his wife and son will suffer for it. For him, it's a hopeless mess. Back at the fortress, Jiangqi's friend is in bad shape. He's become like a beast, with no reason left. The group watches in despair as their friend is reduced to this state. Then Yiming says they should put him down. That immediately makes Xiaoyang suspicious again. Jiangqi can't believe Yiming would say that, but Yiming means it. He says there's no point keeping an infected person alive, especially one who's basically already gone. If he breaks free, everyone else will be in danger. It hurts to hear, but he's right. Xiaoyang agrees. There's no cure, so their friend can't be brought back. To test Yiming, Xiaoyang hands him a blade to see what he'll do. Yiming freezes at first, then understands. Xiaoyang wants him to kill his infected friend. Yiming trembles as he stares at the weapon. Xiaoyang presses him, reminding him that he was the one asking for a weapon. If that's what he believes, then he should be the one to send his friend off. Before it goes further, Jiangqi knocks the blade away. He knows how heavy that choice is and offers to do it himself. Xiaoyang quickly warns him that if he does this, he'll be taking a life. That's not something to take lightly, but Jiangqi trusts Xiaoyang and still decides to do it. Seeing his resolve, Xiaoyang lets him step forward. In the next moment, Jiangqi raises the blade and is just about to strike when Xiaoyang suddenly stops him. Even after agreeing, he changes his mind at the last second. Chen Chong's case is different, so Xiaoyang doesn't want him killed yet. He still has a use for him. The system had already warned him that Chen Chen Chong's mutation is rare. Once he's alone in the room, Xiaoyang checks on him. Right now, Chen Chong is nothing but a savage monster. But Xiaoyang walks right up to him without fear and reminds him that he still has one last job. The next day, a car slams into a pole. It's the boss, having such a terrible day that he can't even drive straight. Luckily, he's close enough to the fortress to go on foot. But things get worse when a zombie suddenly attacks him. It bites his arm. He shoves the thing off, then runs back to the car. Grabbing a metal pipe, he cracks the zombie in the head. He keeps smashing until its head is turned into a bloody mess. But he spent too long on one zombie, and now more are closing in. Even with his injury, he keeps moving toward the fortress. Meanwhile, Xiaoyang has his people geared up. They're all armed and ready to clear the zombies near the base. Shanshan struggles with the protective gear. It's uncomfortable, but they need it. Xiaoyang explains that zombies can burst forward with crazy force, and that's dangerous for people without battle experience. They can take the gear off later. Outside, they pick one zombie as their target. Xiaoyang tells everyone to get ready. They're close enough to attack. The zombie suddenly spots them and charges. As it rushes in, Xiaoyang reminds the team to cover each other and keep their distance. He slips past the zombie's lunge and shows them how to make an opening after a dodge. The best places to hit are the temples and the back of the neck. The neck is the weak point. Surprisingly, Four Eyes is brave enough to swing at the zombie's face, but instead of landing a real hit, he just hurts himself. Xiaoyang tells them hitting the skull is useless. It's one of the worst moves they can make. That mistake gives the zombie a chance to attack, forcing Four Eyes to block with his weapon. The creature keeps pressing him while he shakes and calls for help. Still, Xiaoyang is impressed that he managed to defend himself. Then Zhang Qi charges in and goes for the neck. He hits the weak spot perfectly, opening the way for the others to swarm in and finish it. Xiaoyang reminds them that repeated strikes are key to making sure a zombie stays down. Zhang Qi turns and asks how they did, but Xiaoyang says they should already know. Then another zombie rushes him from a blind spot. Zhang Qi yells to warn him. The zombie is only inches from his shoulder when Xiaoyang spins around and grabs it by the head. Without a hint of fear, he turns it into another lesson. Always watch your surroundings. The others are stunned by his speed and reflexes. Now let's check on the boss. He's regretting everything when he sees several vehicles parked outside the fortress. For a second, he wonders if someone else already killed Xiaoyang. Then he hears people talking nearby. He recognizes Xiaoyang's voice and moves closer to look. Hiding behind a car, he stares in shock. Xiaoyang and his team are taking down zombies with ease. What he doesn't notice is Wen Shuya's zombie body crawling out from under the car and grabbing his leg. She pulls him down hard. With no way to defend himself, the boss braces for death as the zombie lunges at him. But just before she can kill him, her head explodes. Xiaoyang got there just in time and saved him. The boss pushes the body aside while Xiaoyang asks why he's here. The boss starts to explain, but before he can finish, Xiaoyang sees the bite on his arm. He points his gun at him and says he's already done for. The boss begs him to listen before pulling the trigger. Xiaoyang agrees to hear him out but keeps his distance. Even the boss knows there's no saving him now. It's only a matter of time before he turns. But he doesn't want his family to die the same way. He explains that Yang Tao attacked them and is holding them hostage to get Xiaoyang's supplies. He's done plenty of bad things in his life, but nothing like what Yang Tao is doing now. His family is innocent, and he knows Yang Tao won't spare them, so he begs Xiaoyang to save them. Xiaoyang is conflicted. He knows Zhang Shengji is selfish, but the man did help deliver the supplies. On top of that, his group has more men than women, so saving that family could help balance things out. He's even more willing when the system gives him a mission to protect the boss's family for 25 points. He also still has his current mission to wipe out the undead around the base, so Xiaoyang agrees to protect the boss's family. Hearing that, Zhang Shengji drops to the ground, overwhelmed with gratitude. But now the time has come. The boss knows he'll turn soon, and he doesn't want to die like a normal man. Understanding that, Xiaoyang tells Shanshan to bring a bike from storage. She doesn't get why, but she does it. Then Xiaoyang tells the boss to get away from everyone and isolate himself somewhere no one can reach him. He doesn't explain much, but says it's the best move before the infection takes over. The boss accepts and thanks him again. In the next scene, Zhang Shengji rides off on the bike. He's slowly turning, and his last thoughts are of his family. After he leaves, Xiaoyang looks over the pile of dead zombies. He pours gasoline on the bodies and burns them all to ash. Their training session is officially over. Xiaoyang is now sure the team can handle scattered zombies if they work together. But with their current level, they still can't face even a small horde. That will take more time. Xiaoyang tells the team to follow him, and soon they arrive at another storage room. Our boy has the old man watch the weapons storage tonight while he heads into the city. Of course, Shanshan's grandpa is worried. Going into a ruined city sounds crazy. Zhang Qi and Four Eyes offer to come too, but Xiaoyang refuses. The mission is too dangerous for their current skill level, so they need to stay and guard the fortress. With that decided, a few minutes later he's already in his car, armed and ready. For the first time in forever, the store is empty. Even the refresh feature takes time. This time, he spends points to refresh the whole list. New loot boxes appear that he's never seen before. Black tech, life-saving, and armed threat boxes. But each manual refresh doubles the cost, so he has to use it wisely. Even so, Xiaoyang decides these new boxes are worth spending his points on. For now, he only buys the black black tech supply box, leaving himself 6 points. When he opens it, he gets a physical enhancement potion that gives 5 points this time. That's a much bigger boost than before. Now pushing into superhuman strength, Xiaoyang injects the potion. His body absorbs it, making him stronger than ever. His real destination is the boss's house. Inside, the boss's wife and child tremble, hoping Zhang Shengjie will come fix everything. After a while, Yang Tao and his goons enter the room. The helpless woman asks what they plan to do. One scumbag grabs at her and says they'll enjoy themselves while her husband is gone. She fights back as best she can, begging them to stop. The thugs start tearing Xiao Li's clothes while her desperate son tries to shove one away. Then the ponytailed man, Li, walks in and asks what all the noise is. A goon says they're about to have some fun and tells Li to join them, but Li shuts it down. The job isn't done, so they need to focus. The thug complains, asking why it matters when they've done this before. Li snaps and reminds him that this is Zhang Shengjie's wife and kid. If she breaks down or kills herself, Zhang Shengjie will have nothing left to lose, and then he'll come for all of them. Li says they can deal with her later after her husband is handled. The thug grumbles but backs off. The goons start leaving, though one gives her a creepy warning to wait her turn. Mother and son can only cry. Night falls, and zombies begin roaming the streets. Driving through the empty roads, Xiaoyang thinks about his growth. With 13 points in stamina, he's over twice as strong as a normal person, and his reactions and control are far better too. He speeds through blocked streets, drifting around corners and enjoying the rush. But the whole area is packed with zombies, so he decides to leave the car behind. The city center is close, and driving any farther would draw too much attention. As he continues on foot, he hears roars. He turns and sees 2 zombies charging him. Xiaoyang doesn't panic. He dodges the attack, drives his shoulder into one of them, and hurls it away, sending it crashing into the other zombie. Then he summons his sword and rushes in again, not holding back. With one swing, both zombies are beheaded. To him now, they're just test dummies for his new power. He's stunned by how easily he crushes them. He's clearly more than twice as strong as an average person now. His senses are sharper too, and with his enhanced hearing, he can tell his target is only about 800 meters away. Nearby, a group of zombies keeps smashing against the door of a grocery store. Inside, the survivors pile heavy objects against the entrance, hoping it holds while they find a way out. A scared brat asks his father if they're going to die here. The man tries to calm him down, saying these monsters can't get in, and even if they do, they'll be reunited with his mother. That doesn't help much, and the kid starts crying harder. The officer gets annoyed by such a stupid thing to say, but the father fires back that if the officer was so smart, he'd be a property manager by now. Even the officer starts worrying they may really die here. Then gunshots ring out. One zombie at the door gets its head blown apart, and the brat drops in shock while his father has no idea what just happened. The officer tells them to move the heavy stuff and check outside, but warns them to stay quiet. When they peek out, they see all the nearby zombies are already dead, so they cautiously step outside. The brat suddenly yells about a mutant. His father asks what he means, and the kid explains it's a zombie that's stronger and faster, just like in comics, novels, and games. Old Song gets irritated and snaps at his son for still thinking about games in a life or death moment. He says that's probably why the kid always got bad grades. The officer cuts in, telling him to stop arguing. Grades have nothing to do with this. He tells them to hurry and watch their surroundings as they slowly head toward the base. When they reach a fork in the road, they stop. Old Song looks across the street and spots a young man standing there. It's Xiaoyang, busy using his system to add points and adjust his stats. The brat instantly screams that it's a mutant zombie, but the officer quickly realizes this is clearly a survivor, not a zombie. Xiaoyang notices them, laughs at the kid's mistake, and tells him to stop imagining things. The officer relaxes when he realizes it really is another survivor. He carefully walks over and says it's too dangerous to be alone. They need to stick together, so he invites Xiaoyang to join them. Xiaoyang asks who they are and why only a few of them are out here. While watching the area, the officer explains they're searching for supplies and that many civilians are still gathered at Rongxiang Garden. Hearing that, Xiaoyang remembers Junyu Mansion is nearby. Old Song nods and says it's right across the street. He urges Xiaoyang to come with them, saying there's safety in numbers. Officer Li has a gun, and they know how to deal with zombies. They have no idea who Xiaoyang really is, and he doesn't brag. He simply agrees. Then they move on carefully. Old Song asks why Xiaoyang wants to go to Junyu Mansion and whether he's looking for someone important. Xiaoyang says yes. Old Song asks if it's family or a girlfriend. Then he warns him to be ready for the worst. This is the end of the world, and that person may already be dead. Officer Li grimly agrees. Even if they survived the zombies, they could have run into those beasts. That catches Xiaoyang's attention, and he asks what he means. Officer Li says a gang of thugs is hiding in the Buyu Mountain Villa area in the east. To survive, they prey on other survivors, and his group already lost many people to them. He doesn't want to say more and reminds everyone to stay careful around other survivors too. Suddenly, the brat yells for the officer to watch out. Officer Li turns and sees a zombie lunging at him. He quickly drops it with a few precise shots. After the close call, Officer Li pants hard, shaken because he thought he was dead, but the gunfire has already drawn more zombies. The officer starts to panic, then spots an abandoned bus. Everyone runs for it. Xiaoyang smiles at their choice. Running blindly could pull in even more zombies, but a bus makes a solid defensive shelter. The problem is obvious too. If it falls, there's nowhere to retreat. He gives the plan a mental score of 70. The others climb into the bus, and Officer Lee tells Xiaoyang to hurry. Xiaoyang leaps inside, and Officer Lee slams the door shut behind him. He warns everyone to check the seats for hidden zombies, but the brat shouts that the zombies are still coming. Officer Lee grits his teeth as he realizes they escaped fast, but not fast enough. The zombies start slamming against the bus, trying to force their way in. More gather every second, and the officer struggles to hold the door closed. Then Zhang reaches out and slams the door shut with such force that the zombies are thrown back and the entrance seals tight. Officer Lee just stares, shocked by that kind of strength. Zhang Xiaoyang says he'll hold the door shut and tells them to break the windows and fight from there. To everyone's surprise, Officer Lee agrees and puts his trust in Zhang Xiaoyang. They immediately smash the bus windows. The zombies clinging outside get hit in the head by Old Song, while the others back him up. They keep Old Song steady so he doesn't fall out the window. Officer Lee avoids using his gun since he's low on ammo and wants to save it for a real emergency. Then Zhang Xiaoyang pulls out a crossbow and hands it to Officer Lee. The officer is confused, wondering where it even came from, and Zhang casually says he picked it up earlier. With that, Old Song and Officer Lee join the fight, using the crossbow and brute force to clear the zombies. After a hard fight, they wipe them out and finally leave the bus. The brat gets way too confident, convinced they escaped by fate and must be chosen in this apocalypse. Zhang tells everyone to stay sharp and not repeat the same careless mistake. Back at the fort, everyone is hoping Zhang Xiaoyang is safe. That night, Liu Yiming volunteers to stand guard. The glasses guy asks why he's suddenly so eager, and Liu Yiming snaps at him to quit talking nonsense, saying he's always taken his duties seriously. The fatty gets shut down fast and asks why Liu Yiming is so upset over a little joke. Uncle Sheng steps in and says if Liu Yiming is taking watch, everyone else should rest. He tells Liu Yiming to wake them right away if anything happens. As the night grows later, Liu Yiming sits there, thinking about how everyone is probably asleep by now. Then he decides it's time to handle what he planned before Zhang gets back. Meanwhile, the old man is fast asleep, with the weapon room key beside his pillow. He doesn't notice when Liu Yiming quietly slips into the room. As Liu Yiming moves to the old man's bed and reaches for the key, he's caught off guard when the old man wakes up just in time. He demands to know what Liu Yiming is doing, but before he can say more, he gets punched hard in the face by Liu Yiming. Grabbing the key, Liu Yiming takes off while the old man yells for him to give it back. The noise wakes everyone up, and the old man quickly tells them Liu Yiming stole the weapons room key. They all rush after that bastard, but while running, he throws junk behind him to block the way. The whole group stops there. It's almost funny. They could just jump over it, but they freeze like game characters blocked by an invisible wall. Liu Yiming spots the nursery on the way and decides he may as well go all in. He enters the room where Chen Chong, now a zombie, is strapped to the bed. As Liu Yiming moves closer, the zombie suddenly swings with its free hand. Liu Yiming is surprised. The other hand was supposed to be tied down, so he wonders if the straps were too loose. That actually makes him happier since now he doesn't have to untie the zombie himself. Meanwhile, the others finally get past the mess, and what they see in the hall is bad news. They're furious that Liu Yiming went this far just to free Chen Chong from the infirmary. The old man regrets not seeing earlier what a snake Liu Yiming was, but Shan Shan says regret won't help now. Since the weapons are locked away, they need to get the zombie back into the infirmary first. Uncle Sheng decides to use the method Zhang Xiaoyang taught them. Be careful and don't get bitten. Keeping that in mind, they move toward the zombie. Zhang Qi quickly grabs the bastard by the neck while the other two pin down its arms. The old man helps the most by pointing to the infirmary and telling them to drag it back. On the count of 3, they shove the zombie back inside and lock the door as tightly as they can. Once it's trapped again, someone says handling the zombie felt easier than expected, and the others agree. But the old man reminds them they wasted too much time, and that brat has probably already gotten the weapons. Right then, Li Yuming appears and mocks the old man for calling him a brat. Worst of all, he now has a gun. He's annoyed the storeroom only had one, but says one is enough to kill them all, then he'll look for the rest. Li Yuming aims the gun and orders them back into the room. Zhang Qi tries to talk him down, reminding him Zhang Xiaoyang saved everyone and gave them a chance to live. But Li Yuming says Zhang always acts superior, and saving them doesn't mean they owe him their lives forever. The old man calls him an ungrateful punk. Inside the infirmary, Chen Chong seems to have plans of his own, and it looks like he's about to join the fight. But before that can happen, the scene shifts to Rongxiang Garden, where Officer Li carefully explains the way to Jinyu Mansion. He warns that the area is confusing and perfect for zombies to hide, so Zhang needs to be careful. He tells Zhang Xiaoyang to come back to Rongxiang Garden after finding the people he's looking for, and says the side gate is safer than the main entrance. Zhang thanks him and says he'll remember that. As Zhang heads out, Old Song offers to go with him since he saved them, but Officer Li says they don't know what's waiting inside Jinyu Mansion. If they run into a zombie horde, they'll all die. Old Song asks why they're letting Zhang walk into that alone. Officer Li says he's warned Zhang all he can. The rest is up to him, though he admits Zhang is clearly capable. Meanwhile, the outside area is packed with zombies. Inside, the thugs holding Zhang Sheng's family hostage are getting irritated that he still hasn't returned. One thug doesn't care and says he's waited long enough. Tonight, he's taking it out on the wife. These idiots are still waiting for a dead man. One of them at least guesses Zhang may already be dead since he went out alone. Another says when they have their fun, they'll tie the woman up so she can't kill herself. Since they don't know how long they've got, they decide to enjoy themselves now. The woman trembles as she hears their plan. Ponytail finally gives them the go-ahead, but warns them not to let anything happen to the woman while they're messing around. Then Ponytail notices something strange outside. All the zombies out there have suddenly dropped dead. He doesn't know why, but we do. Ponytail goes out to check, thinking it might be a rescue team, but the moment he steps outside, his story ends. As he moves forward, a dagger flashes, slashes his throat open, and his head rolls across the ground. Back in the room, the other thugs are ready to take their prize. Grinning, they start undoing their belts. They rip her son away from her and slap her hard when she yells. They toss the boy aside, but the kid still fights back with everything he has. The thugs kick him out, then slam the door and leave him outside. Right then, Ponytail's headless body drops to the floor, and the kid freezes in shock. Then he sees a figure standing at the doorway. There's nothing to fear. It's Zhang Xiaoyang. Zhang asks if Zhang Shengjie is his father. The boy stammers before finally answering. Inside, the thugs are already tearing at the woman's clothes while she struggles to cover herself. One smug thug slaps her again and tells her to scream while they harass her, but she stays silent so her son won't hear. The thug decides he'll go first, then let the others have their turn. Before he can, the door crashes open. One thug thinks the kid kicked it in, but before he can react, his head is sliced clean off. His friend, still clueless, asks why he's just standing there and tells him to kick the brat out, without realizing the guy is already headless. A second later, the body drops, and the others are stunned. They still can't figure out what's happening when Zhang Xiaoyang grabs one of them and slams him hard against the wall. The thug, still messing with his belt, stammers and asks who Zhang is. Zhang doesn't answer. He just kicks him in the face and ends him on the spot. Back at the fort, Li Yuming points his gun at everyone and gives one last warning. Move, or he shoots. The old man tells the others to do what he says and head into the room. Shan Shan refuses, but he insists and says he'll figure something out later. Li Yuming only grins and says there's nothing to figure out. He warns them they haven't seen how ruthless he can be, then decides to start with the old man for talking too much. The two people behind the old man try to calm him down, but in the middle of it, they hear something. The infirmary door lock starts turning, and then the door swings open. To everyone's shock, Chen Chong somehow used the key and got out. No one can believe he unlocked it himself while still in that berserk state. But one thing is obvious. Chen Chong is staring straight at Li Yuming with pure killing intent. Li Yuming quickly aims his gun, set on killing the monster before it gets closer. He pulls the trigger but the gun jams and he instantly knows he's done for. Before he can react, the monster leaps at him and rips him apart, ending the man who'd kept everyone terrified. Chen Chong doesn't stop there. He drags Li Yuming's corpse back toward the infirmary. No one understands what's happening. They just stare in shock. Then Chen Chong picks up the infirmary key, throws it away and locks himself inside again, leaving the others completely stunned. Meanwhile, Zhang Xiaoyang finishes off the thugs and unties the wife. Then he calls the boy over. The mother pulls her son close and asks what Zhang wants with him. Zhang doesn't explain. He just tells the boy to come here. After a moment, the kid decides to trust him and tells his mother it'll be okay. When he walks over, Zhang gives him a dagger and tells him to kill the men who hurt them. The thugs instantly realize what's about to happen and start begging. Even the mother objects, saying he's only a child. But Zhang says he isn't just a child anymore. From now on, he has to protect his mother, so he needs to find his courage and kill the monsters who harmed her. The thug's filthy smiles flash through the boy's mind, and with all his fear turned into anger, he rushes at them and finally kills them, getting revenge for his mother. The mother watches in horror, while the boy is swallowed by rage. Because even now, his father still isn't coming back. Broken and desperate, he asks Zhang if his father is really dead. Zhang quietly says yes. The boy can't take it anymore and drops the bloody knife. He runs to his mother and hugs her as hard as he can. Wanting to save her son, the mother begs Zhang to take the boy and says she'll do anything. But the boy refuses. He wants to stay and protect her. Zhang tells both of them to come with him. He says he promised Zhang Shengjie he would keep them safe. Hearing that, the mother and son follow him. As they pass the corpses, Shuai trembles at the sight and at the thought of the monster who killed them. Zhang calmly says he was the one who killed them. The boy is Shuai, and his mother is Xiaoli. Then suddenly, Zhang signals them to stop after hearing something suspicious nearby. He asks Xiaoli where Building 8 in Banyan Garden is. She says it's straight ahead and wonders why he wants to know. The story shifts to Building 8, where a group of looters is outside demanding supplies. Inside, the survivors hide in the apartments, arguing over whether they should give in. Officer Lee shuts that down right away. He says the looters are beasts who won't keep their word and will kill everyone except the women. Outside, the gang gives them 10 minutes to cooperate. One woman inside considers going out to beg for mercy, but another refuses to become those men's toy. Then Gorilla cuts in and tells them not to worry. They aren't surrendering, and if they guard the hallway, the looters won't get through. Outside, the gang leader feels smug about their weapons, but his lackey points out they're still not strong enough to force their way in, especially with the armed leader inside and everyone hiding. The boss says they don't need to rush in. Instead, he orders his men to shut off the water to the first floor apartments and wait. While they make plans, Zhang Xiaoyang watches from nearby. Shuai quietly asks if these are bad people, and Zhang says yes. Funny enough, the same kid asking that just killed 3 grown men, but he still sounds innocent. Zhang reminds Shuai these are the same kind of men who hurt his mother, so they have to be stopped. Meanwhile, Officer Lee tells everyone to watch the stairs and stay hidden while he checks what the men downstairs are doing. He moves to the window and peeks outside, spotting 7 men total, 3 with guns. Then a loud shot rings out, catching Officer Lee by surprise. Everyone else is confused too, but we know what's happening. Zhang Xiaoyang has opened fire on the gang. 1 man drops and the rest have no idea who shot him. That's when Officer Lee sees Zhang Xiaoyang advancing with a gun in hand. He starts firing, and another thug takes a clean headshot. Once they notice him standing among them, they fire back with their pistols. But Zhang keeps walking like nothing's happening. None of the bullets even touch him. Seeing how bad they are only makes him smirk. He aims at the boss hiding behind a concrete block, but the shots hit the block instead. Annoyed, the boss yells at his men to keep firing while Zhang is focused on him. One lackey stands up, ready to kill Zhang himself. Zhang instantly shifts his aim and blows the man's head off. Behind the concrete block, the leader sneers. Sure, Zhang must be out of bullets by now, so he decides to move. He raises his gun at Zhang, but Zhang just stares back coldly. The second the thug fires, Zhang tilts his head and dodges the shot. He grabs the man's gun arm, twists it, and points the gun under his neck. Then he pulls the trigger and sends the bullet through the thug's head. Just like that, the whole squad is wiped out. Zhang searches the leader's body for anything useful, then heads into the building, where a few gang members are still left. The remaining thugs rush him in desperation, but Zhang doesn't even blink. He stays where he is, and 3 quick shots drop all of them. Shuai watches in awe, even more impressed by Zhang after seeing that fight. Right then, a system mission appears for Zhang. Recruit survivors from Rongxiang, with a reward for finishing it. Zhang Xiaoyang asks who those people are, and Officer Lee says they're from the Bikishan villas south of the city. He then calls over 2 young men in yellow jackets, Liu Chao and Chen Ji, and asks them to explain Bikishan to Brother Yang since they came from the south. They say the place is controlled by a gang with weapons and lots of supplies, and they've gathered almost all the survivors from the south. That makes Zhang pause. He wonders if Bikishan is where Li Xuxian and Kuijing built their settlements in his past life. Maybe they took over there. Then he asks if Bikishan is now the only settlement left in the south. One of the men says it wasn't always like that, but the gang had weapons, and weaker shelters couldn't fight back. Every time they took a place, they killed half the people and took the young pretty women, along with anyone willing to join them. At that point, Zhang Xiaoyang is sure who is behind it. Officer Lee hears his confidence and asks what he means. Zhang says the 3 men they just killed all had handguns. He tells them to keep those weapons and check for spare magazines, because there are probably more of them out there. He hands Officer Lee his rifle too, along with 5 magazines. Zhang says the Bakuishan gang won't let this slide, but with these guns, 10 men shouldn't be a big problem now. He tells them to hold out for a few days while he reorganizes at home, then he'll come back and deal with that crew. One man is stunned and asks if Zhang really plans to fight Bakuishan. He warns that they have dozens of men, maybe more. Officer Lee tries to talk him out of it and suggests finding somewhere else, but Zhang tells him not to worry. He already has a score to settle with Bakushan. He also says that in a few days, he'll return with a bigger vehicle and move everyone east of the city near Old Tea Leaf City, where he's building a stronghold and needs more hands. With that, Zhang says a quick goodbye, tells them to stay safe, and leaves with Xiaoli and Shuai. The story then shifts to a much darker place, with bodies scattered around. A lone guard stands watch outside. This is Bakuishan. Inside the mansion, the gang leaders are meeting. Wenge, the orange-haired boss, asks why the supplies at Jinyu Entertainment Center still haven't been secured. Xiaoli, the fat man, says he already sent people there, so they should have returned by now, unaware they were already killed. Kaige reminds him that many rich and powerful people live near Jinyu Mansion, so taking those supplies won't be simple. Xiaoli says his men were told to bring back anyone still alive. The boss is furious and blasts Xiaoli for still not finishing a single job properly. Under the pressure, Xiaoli quickly promises this mission will be done right, while Kaige quietly enjoys watching him squirm. After stepping outside, one of Xiaoli's lackeys notices his bad mood and asks what happened. Xiaoli asks if the 7 men he sent out are back. The lackey says he checked an hour ago and found the whole squad dead. Xiaoli is shocked. He can't believe ordinary survivors from Rongxiang Garden killed armed men. Panicking, he orders Tai Ozi to gather everyone who knows how to use a weapon. This time, he can't afford to fail. Meanwhile, Zhang Xiaoyang finally returns to the base. The moment Shanshan hears the car, she knows Brother Yang is back. As Zhang enters the fort, a mission window appears, telling him the mission is complete. Shanshan happily welcomes him back, but Zhang quickly notices Liu Yiming is missing, which confirms his suspicion that the guy was a snake. Everyone is stunned to learn Zhang had been onto Liu Yiming the whole time. He points to Xiaoli and Shuai, tells the others to take them to their rooms, then meet him in the infirmary. Once they're alone, Zhang explains he knew from the start that Liu Yiming had bad intentions. He says he wasn't fully sure it was him, but he knew one of Zhang Qi's friends was trash. Then Zhang Xiaoyang tosses a large gun to Zhang Qi. When Bleachhead catches it and checks the ammo, he realizes the bullets are rubber. The old man immediately asks about Chen Chong in the infirmary. Walking over, Zhang says Chen Chong isn't a normal zombie. He's a rare mutant, something Zhang had already confirmed earlier. He once asked the zombie to blink 3 times, and Chen Chong actually did it. Zhang explains that after the apocalypse, people infected by otherworldly sources have a tiny chance of becoming rare mutants. They're much smarter than normal zombies, can have huge potential, and may even keep bits of their old memories. Chen Chong is rare even among them. Zhang opens the door, and they find Chen Chong standing over the troublemaker. Seeing Zhang, the zombie quickly waves. Zhang tells him to stop holding back and get rid of the bastard. As the mutant starts dragging that snake away, Bleachhead asks if he still remembers him. Chen Chong slows, then stops and looks at Zhang Qi. No one knows what he's thinking. Then he suddenly swings at Bleachhead, who barely dodges. Turns out Chen Chong is just messing with his old friend, proving that even as a zombie, he still likes fooling around. Later, Zhang Xiaoyang looks over his system screen. Zhang Qi unlocks a hidden achievement called Mutual Companion, adding points to Zhang's total. Surprised by the bonus, Zhang decides to check the shop for anything new. There, he spots a level 2 item called the High-Tech Supply Box, which he's never seen before. But it costs 50 points, so Zhang hesitates. Instead, he opens the 2 boxes he still has left. Both give him surprising rewards. The Lifesaver Supply Box gives him an interdimensional infection blocker, which can stop otherworldly infection from taking hold, though it can't undo a full mutation. The Armed Deterrent Supply Box gives him a Barrett M82, a huge sniper rifle. Zhang is blown away by his luck. The Barrett alone is an incredible pull from a level 1 box, and the infection blocker could keep someone from fully turning into a zombie. The rewards make him want to open the level 2 box even more. But he keeps focused on his next mission, recruiting survivors from Rongxiang Garden tomorrow. Outside, Chen Chong throws the snake beyond the fort's area. Traitors have no place here. By morning, everyone gathers at the training ground. Young and old alike come armed, and Zhang announces that from now on, everyone must practice shooting for at least an hour every day. They start firing at bottles, and each hit flashes with light. The targets get struck cleanly without bursting apart. Zhang tells Uncle Sheng to have Zhang Qi gather everyone and clear a few more rooms, since he's bringing survivors back from Rongxiang Garden today. Uncle Sheng agrees at once. He also orders Chen Chong to join the trip, knowing the mutant's strength will come in handy. Later, they find an abandoned bus filled with zombies. Zhang clears them out easily, and Chen Chong helps by tossing the bodies off the bus. Once it's cleared, Zhang gives Chen Chong the bus keys and says he can take off his mask for now. But when they reach Rongxiang Garden, he needs to put it back on so he doesn't scare anyone. The mutant answers with a growl. Meanwhile, at Bikishan, Shaoli gets ready to head for Rongxiang Garden with a group of lackeys. This time, he's leading the attack himself, determined to crush Rongxiang Garden for good. With his numbers and weapons, he refuses to believe he can lose. Their truck starts up and speeds toward Rongxiang Garden. After stealing the zombie-filled bus, Zhang Xiaoyang jumps into the driver's seat and heads out fast. When he spots more zombies blocking the road, he doesn't slow down at all and plows right through them. Using his boosted reflexes, he weaves and drifts around the abandoned cars clogging the highway. Back in Rongxiang Garden, the building seems calm from the outside. Inside, Officer Li and the survivors eat carefully, trying to make their supplies last. Their meal is cut short by the sound of an engine outside. One of the kids guesses brother Xiaoyang has returned to save them, but Officer Li stays cautious. He grabs his AK-47 and tells everyone to keep quiet while he checks first. Carefully, he peeks out the window. What he sees isn't their rescue. It's a group of thugs out for revenge, checking weapons and searching for Building 8. Once they confirm the location, Li Xusheng orders his men forward. Officer Li is tense. Just when escape seemed possible, the Bequetian bastards showed up. Old Song raises his stolen pistol, ready to face them. With a few guns now spread through the group, the survivors feel a lot bolder. Officer Li warns them not to get cocky. The enemy outside has far more men and better firepower, so everyone needs to stick to the plan. As he heads to the rooftop, he sets up an ambush. Outside, the Bequetian men judge when they're close enough to pressure the survivors inside the building. Led by Li Xusheng, they raise their weapons and aim at the windows of Building 8. Old Song takes one look outside and yells for everyone to get down and take cover. The quiet grief was broken by a burst of gunfire tearing into the high-rise. Windows all across the building blew apart, forcing Old Song farther back. After the first spray of shots, Xusheng took a megaphone and told his men to keep their guns trained on the windows and shoot anyone who showed up. Then he started shouting into the mic, calling out the survivors inside. But before he could say much more, the thug beside him took a bullet through the head. The gang froze. They never expected hidden snipers to fire back. A second thug dropped after a clean shot to the leg. On the roof of Building 8, the AK-47 kept firing while the thugs scrambled for cover. Big Bro Lee had the perfect position and a clear view. Bitchui Mountain never thought the survivors had a long-range automatic weapon. Xusheng cursed the bad intel. He'd been told the survivors only had one pistol, and even with the guns taken from the 7 dead men, there should have been just 4 weak weapons. The shaken thugs looked to their boss for orders, scared of being picked off. His answer was simple: retreat. But these idiots took it the worst way possible and bolted out one by one instead of waiting to run together. Running into the open against a deadly shooter was a disaster, and the cop on the roof made every shot count. Xusheng screamed at his idiots for getting themselves killed, then started a countdown. At 3, the survivors of his squad ran like their lives depended on it, because they did. While his men fled in panic, Boss Lee stayed tucked behind cover. From the roof, the shooter quickly adjusted and kept dropping the retreating thugs with shot after shot. Boss Lee's plan from the start was to use his own men as bait until the sniper ran dry, then make his escape. Total scumbag move. Just as he hoped, the sniper ran out and had to reload. That short pause was enough for Xusheng to reach the car. Out of the whole force, only 4 were left. The last thug was a few seconds too slow, and Li Xuxiang was already in the driver's seat, not about to risk waiting for one more expendable man. Catboy took a bullet to the brain and dropped dead. The other two who made it into the truck bed ducked low, terrified they'd be next. Back on the main road, Zhang Xiaoyang kept barreling through the jammed highway in his hijacked bus. He stayed calm the whole way, focused on getting back to the survivors. Since the roads were almost empty now, another car racing past in the opposite direction caught him off guard. He could have chased it, but Xiaoyang stayed on mission. Right now, getting points mattered more. A few minutes later, he pulled up in front of Building 8. Chen Chong and Xiaoyang got off the bus and saw the aftermath of the fight. Xiaoyang was glad the rifle he left behind had helped, and he figured the car he passed belonged to the raiders who escaped. Chen Chong stared at the fresh, bullet-riddled bodies on the ground and started growling with hunger. Xiaoyang grinned and asked if he was hungry, then told him to go ahead and eat. Better Chen Chong gets the bodies than the wandering zombies nearby. The second he got permission, Chen Chong lit up like a creepy kid in a candy store. Xiaoyang let him loose, as long as he came back under Building 8 when he was done. Chen Chong didn't waste a second and bit into the nearest thug's neck. He enjoyed the blood and meat as he fed. As soon as he swallowed, a wave of energy spread through his body. Meanwhile, Zhang Xiaoyang walked across the bloody scene and, judging by how cleanly the raiders were taken down, admired how ruthless Li Hongli could be. Hearing footsteps, the kid peeked over the broken window and lit up when he saw Xiaoyang. Once they knew it was really him, the other survivors showed themselves and waved him over. With the super cop leading, the survivors gathered their things and came downstairs. Big Bro Li thanked Xiaoyang for the rifle that saved them. Before retiring, he'd been an expert marksman. Their reunion was cut short by a deep roar in the distance, followed by heavy footsteps. The survivors froze when they saw what was coming toward them. It was Chen Chong, limping over with a strained look. Big Bro Li reacted first, grabbing the AK and aiming at the zombie. Xiaoyang calmly pushed the rifle down and told everyone to relax. This guy was with them. Even with that explanation, the survivors had a hard time believing him. And honestly, who wouldn't? Xiaoyang pointed Chen Chong toward the rest of the dead thugs and told him to keep eating. Big Bro Li was both shocked and scared. He asked if Xiaoyang could actually communicate with zombies. Xiaoyang said Chen Chong wasn't a normal zombie. It was a long story, so he told everyone to get on the bus first and promised to explain on the way. As they headed over, Xiaoyang reminded Chen Chong to finish fast and come back. Chen Chong gave an okay sign without stopping his messy feast. After swallowing every dead Bichui mountain thug, Chen Chong picked up his mask and put it back on. The survivors stared at the strange sight. The kid couldn't understand how a zombie could be clear-headed enough to put a mask on by itself. Xiaoyang warned him not to call it a muzzle where Chen Chong could hear, unless he wanted to get smacked. Quietly, the kid was starting to think the mutant zombie was kind of cool. After his solo feast, Chen Chong climbed into the bus like a regular guy. After eating that many people, he'd grown a lot heavier. The bus actually tilted to one side when he got in. This time, Chen Chong even managed to slur out a word while handing the mask key back to Xiaoyang. Even Xiaoyang didn't expect him to start talking this soon, even if it was only one word. He'd eaten 6 corpses, so he was likely evolving again. Still, Xiaoyang's main goal was getting everyone home and making the settlement stronger. He got in the driver's seat, told everyone to hold on, and took off fast. Back at Bichui Mountain headquarters, Li Zuqiang had to report the failed raid and got chewed out for it. He tried to defend himself, saying the intel was wrong and nobody told him the survivors had automatic rifles. Boss Lin didn't buy it. In his eyes, there was no way a small-town cop should have an automatic rifle, so the excuse sounded made up. Still, Li Zuxiang insisted and asked them to check the battlefield if they didn't believe him. The boss's right-hand man got fed up and kicked him to the floor. That was Li Zuxiang's sign to get out. The right-hand man had been tired of Zuxiang's stupidity and uselessness for a long time. Now that he'd cost them so many men, killing him outright was starting to sound easier. Another Bichui mountain leader, Boss Shu, called out the real reason for that hate. The guy had been eyeing Zuxiang's woman. The creep even suggested they share her like property. Boss Lin smiled at the idea but said there was no need to rush. They should wait for the right moment. What the thugs didn't know was that Li Zuxiang never really left. He was listening from the doorway. He clenched his teeth in fury, knowing he had to find a way out. A few hours later, he got back to his fancy house and threw a fit. Mad at his own failure, he trashed the place. His girl came out and tried to calm him down. Instead, Li Zuxiang told her to start packing. They had to leave as soon as possible. She asked where. He had no real answer. He only knew this place wasn't safe anymore, and they had to prepare. Boss Li called for his assistant, Qingzi, who hurried in. He ordered Qingzi to gather their remaining men because they were leaving at midnight. His girl could tell something was very wrong, and she hated it. Back to the people who matter, Xiaoyang returned to his compound and parked the bus inside one of the indoor garages. The survivors from Building 8 got out and stared at the huge size of Xiaoyang's fortress. With everyone back safely, the rescue mission was done. He only needed to save 5 people, but he brought back 8. He earned the 25-point reward plus a 5-point bonus, raising his total to 66. Xiaoyang then told his zombie partner that tomorrow night, the two of them were heading to the Southern District. Li Shuxiang heard that and asked what was in the Southern District. Xiaoyang said he had some unfinished business with the people at Bichui Mountain Villa. That night, Xiaoyang shut himself in his room and looked at the level 2 high-tech supply crate, which cost 50 points, an amount he could finally afford. He quickly tapped it, eager to see what his first level 2 crate would give him. After buying it, his points dropped to 16. Lights swirled around him as Zhang Xiaoyang hoped the expensive crate was worth it. This time, he got lucky. The level 2 crate gave Zhang Xiaoyang a physical enhancement serum. The huge syringe held a drug that could raise his physical stats by 20 points. Without waiting, he injected it straight into his veins. It hurt way more than he expected. His physical stat was now 33, giving him over 6 times the strength of an average man. It didn't just boost his strength, it sharpened his senses too. He heard a mosquito buzzing in the room and instantly snatched it out of the air by its stinger. His better reflexes and coordination would be a huge help in battle. He released the bug and let it fly off, fully pleased with the reward. By sunset, he went on his usual patrol around the base with Brother Chong. In one yard, he saw Li Hongli leading marksmanship practice. After that, Xiaoyang headed toward the south side of the city. Before leaving, he asked the old cop to take charge of firearms training since he was probably their best sniper. Old Li gladly accepted, happy to help with what he did best. With that settled, Xiaoyang walked while Brother Chong limped beside him to the as the bus sped ahead. Trouble was already brewing in the enemy camp. Li Shusheng had ordered his men to run, knowing danger was closing in. But his escape plan was nowhere near as smart as he thought. The leaders of Beechway Mountain Villa arrived at his mansion and blocked the exits. Inside the lead car were the top bosses, along with one very familiar woman. With a mocking smile and a gun in hand, Boss Shu asked Boss Li why he was leaving in the middle of the night. Boss Li lied on the spot, saying he was taking his men to Rongxiang Garden under cover of darkness to finish the job. Usually that kind of fast talking might work, but not this time. One of his men had already been caught and forced to give up everything. Boss Li's group immediately recognized Qingzi's body. Even then, Boss Li acted like he had never seen the corpse before, awkwardly scratching his head and hoping the act would work. Boss Shu got tired of the nonsense and ordered his men to open fire on Boss Li's group. Boss Li stood there shaking as his men dropped one after another. Even then, he kept pretending to know nothing. Boss Shu knew how to break him. He told Li Shusheng to look at the person in the passenger seat. One glance was enough for Li Shusheng to understand what happened. Kuijing had betrayed him too, just like she always did when a bigger backer showed up. Boss Kai was fed up. Li Shusheng was still playing dumb, even though Kuijing had already exposed the whole escape plan. He really should have expected it. After all, she had ruined Zhang Xiaoyang before latching onto him, so of course she'd do it again. At last, Boss Kai looked to Boss Zhang for the final call. Boss Zhang gave a calm, silent signal to execute Li Shusheng. They chose a brutal way to do it. They put a noose around his neck and had one of their strongest men pull until Li Shusheng finally stopped fighting. It was a slow, miserable death, and when the last bit of life left him, they hung his body at the gate of his own mansion. Later that night, a bright blue bus stopped nearby. Zhang Xiaoyang and Brother Chong quietly moved in on foot. At the entrance, they quickly realized they were too late. They had come to kill Li Shusheng, but someone else had done it first. Xiaoyang thought the bastard deserved it, though he hated not doing it himself. He picked up a small stone and threw it at the rope, cutting the body down. Seeing how this scumbag ended, Xiaoyang felt even more eager to get some satisfying revenge. Back at Beechway Mountain Villa, ugly sounds came from the top floor. Kuijing thought she could switch sides again and live well with stronger criminals. She was very wrong, and her betrayal had dropped her into the hands of monsters. Boss Zhang saw her as nothing more than a body to use. The two sick bosses passed her back and forth. They were vile people, but justice was close. Boss Kai glanced out the penthouse window and froze when he saw his guards lying dead outside. A loud knock suddenly came at the door. That was only a distraction. The real attacker came in through the high window. Knife in hand, Xiaoyang looked like death itself. He pressed the blade to Boss Kai's neck, where one small move would finish him. Without letting the man say another word, he slit his throat and left Kai choking on his own blood. One down, one to go. Boss Zhang was stunned. 1 second he was busy with Kuijing, and the next his partner was dead on the floor. Kuijing, meanwhile, instantly recognized Zhang Xiaoyang. Xiaoyang wasted no time and hurled the knife straight at the naked bastard. Boss Zhang died with his neck sliced open. As soon as he hit the floor, Kuijing let out a terrified scream. She wasn't foolish enough to think Xiaoyang had come to save her. Seeing him only filled her with more fear. Xiaoyang gave her a mocking look and walked to the door. As he slowly unlocked it, he wondered what Li Shusheng would think if he saw her like this. The moment the door opened, the mutated fat man came in. Li Shusheng was gone. Now he was only a mindless, flesh-hungry monster. He went straight for Kuijing's neck and tore into her flesh bite after bite. She begged for help, but no one answered. With his revenge complete, Zhang Xiaoyang shut the door on the two people who had betrayed and killed him in his past life. Outside, he talked with Brother Chong about getting rid of the bodies. The dead guards would make a fine meal for his mutant partner. But Brother Chong was still full from earlier and could only eat one corpse tonight. Even so, that was better than nothing. While Brother Chong ate, Xiaoyang's enhanced hearing picked up something interesting in the distance. In a building near Beechway Mountain Villa, a group of frightened survivors was being held against their will. Watching over them were a brutal chef and a creepy thug. The thug grabbed a little girl, picking her as their next meal because of her soft meat. The chef rejected her at once. She was too skinny. Instead, he wanted the chubby little boy clinging to his mother. The chef dragged the boy away while his mother begged him to stop. Annoyed by her, the chef knocked her down with a single swing. The mother cried and begged them to spare her son. It was all she could do. She pleaded with the other survivors for help, but no one moved. They were just relieved it wasn't them. Then gunshots suddenly broke through the room. 3 large holes ripped through the entrance. The guards instantly drew their weapons. As far as they knew, only the bosses had guns that powerful. Thankfully, the shots delayed the boy's terrible fate. The damaged door creaked open, and the guards aimed at it, ready to fire. But after a few seconds, nothing appeared. Growing impatient, the chef ordered one guard to go outside and check. The man slowly edged through the doorway. The moment he stepped into range, Brother Chong grabbed him by the neck. Without showing himself, he had already taken down one armed guard. Seeing that pale arm, the others assumed zombies had broken in. They opened fire at once, wasting bullets and hitting nothing. Brother Chong kept luring them around, circling the room and easily avoiding their awful aim. When the shooting finally stopped, Brother Chong smashed through a boarded window with little effort. He targeted the chef standing in the middle of the group. Without slowing down, Brother Chong snapped the chef's neck in midair. He landed and used the momentum to launch himself at the next target. In just seconds, the untrained goons were slaughtered one by one. When the rampage ended, the captive survivors could only stare in fear and confusion. The zombie had killed every thug, but left them untouched. When the noise finally died down, Xiaoyang walked in and praised Brother Chong for wiping them out so cleanly, even with the mask on. Brother Chong rasped back that the mask just makes him look cooler. And honestly, he's right. Hearing a zombie talk only made the survivors even more confused and scared. The children clung tighter to their mothers, and everyone stayed away from the strange mutant. Xiaoyang broke the tension and told them Brother Chong wouldn't hurt them. But the little girl didn't buy it. She'd seen monsters like him kill people without hesitation before. That immediately caught Xiaoyang's attention. He gently asked what she meant by super monsters. Her mother explained that they had seen another strange mutant in eastern Decor City. Xiaoyang had expected mutants like that to appear a month or two later. Worse, Decor City was close to their base in Old Tea Leaf Town. He warned Brother Chong that another rare mutant might be nearby. Some mutants keep part of their mind and memories, which makes them far more dangerous than normal zombies. But when the mutation is unstable, they usually become much more violent. That possibility made Brother Chong uneasy about his own future. Xiaoyang sensed it and reassured him. Brother Chong was one of the lucky ones who kept his reason, and with Xiaoyang around, he'd be fine. He then asked if there were more survivors in the villa. They said some people might be locked in the basement sales office, so they headed there next. The moment Xiaoyang opened the steel door, the smell of blood hit him hard. Everyone flinched at the massacre hidden behind it. This had to be where those Beachui mountain villa bastards kept the people they butchered for meat, so that explained why there were no other survivor groups around here. Some captives had seen the goons regularly hauling unknown amounts of meat out of the city. From the bodies left in the basement, Xiaoyang could roughly guess the death toll. With that much meat, they were clearly involved in something even darker. Since no one was living in the basement, the last place to check was the sales office about a kilometer away near the south gate. New survivors were held there first, and the useless ones were sent off. At the same time, Xiaoyang got a mission chain called Subpar Utopia, pushing him to grow and improve his community score. The goons at the sales office still had no idea their whole setup had already collapsed. They'd only heard gunfire and assumed the bosses were using live people for target practice again. Using the darkness, Brother Chong quietly took out the weak security. Inside the sales office, a few unlucky women were still trapped. The state of the room made it obvious what had been happening there. They heard the commotion outside. Some had already given up, while others still held on to a little hope. When the door opened, it wasn't another filthy goon from the villa. It was a young man with a hard, steady look in his eyes. Xiaoyang called the women out and added them to the group he had rescued that night. They left the sales office and stepped past the blood and bodies of the dead goons. Xiaoyang promised them a safe place to stay, a real home, not this nightmare. His one condition was simple. Everyone had to work and help the community grow. After what they'd gone through in the villa, that deal sounded far better than their current lives. With that decided, Xiaoyang led them to his ride. Everyone got on the bus, and this time he had brought one big enough for all of them. Not long after, they arrived back at the base. Shinshan and Zhangqi were waiting for him. Since he hadn't driven the bus straight in, Zhangqi watched to see what he planned first. Xiaoyang introduced the place, but made it clear he couldn't let everyone into the fortress without checking them first. The survivors understood. For now, they'd stay in temporary prefab housing behind iron fences. It wasn't as safe as the main fortress, but compared to the rest of the city, it felt like heaven. Old Tea Leaf Town still had lots of open land and unfinished buildings, and things would keep improving over time. Hearing that, the survivors thanked their rescuer. The night passed, and morning came. Then a convoy of cars and trucks rolled up to Beachui Mountain Villa. The woman leading the group was already losing patience. That bastard Zhang Qingwen, and every idiot she left in charge, had stopped answering her calls. She knew something was wrong, so she got out and checked the buildings herself. Just as expected, she found blood, gore, and rotting corpses everywhere. The people killed the night before had already risen as mindless zombies. One of them was Li Zuxiang. He roared and lunged at the living on pure instinct. Lady Boss Rui barely even looked at them before killing them with her bare hands. Then she pulled out a knife and hacked the zombies apart piece by piece. With the villa overrun, the bosses she planted here were dead too, and their supply of human meat had taken a hit. They had to clean up the mess. But first, they needed to find whoever destroyed Beachui Mountain Villa. More blood was going to spill. After checking the whole villa, her people reported that not a single survivor was left alive. The one bit of good news was that enough meat remained for today's shipment. They just had to bring the truck over and load it up. While her men packed trash bags full of human meat into the truck, Boss Rui thought about her next move. Looking around, she spotted tire tracks leading away from the villa. That gave them a trail to whoever ruined their operation. Back at the fortress, Xiaoyang was thinking about his mission to expand the community. Even after bringing in many survivors, his score was still only 2, which made no sense if population mattered. At least he had plenty of land to build on. That arrogant guy who sold him the title had actually done him a favor. But the expansion mission wasn't his only problem. The rare mutant in the nearby town also needed attention. So, with Shan and Zhang Qi, he went to the prefab area, where the new survivors welcomed him like a savior. After getting settled into housing with full basic amenities, some of them even knelt to thank him. Xiaoyang was there for one reason: to learn more about the super monster the mother and daughter had mentioned. The mother said they ran into it at Hurinfa Market in Decor City while scavenging for supplies. Several people died. She grabbed her daughter and escaped during the chaos, and they ran all the way to Bichui Mountain Villa, only to fall into the hands of even worse monsters. Now that he had the exact location, Xiaoyang headed for his vehicle. Shan and Zhang Qi tried to talk him out of it, since they already had plenty of supplies, but he wasn't going there for loot. Decor City was less than 2 kilometers from the base, and he couldn't leave a threat like that so close. Even the woman who had seen the monster tried to stop him, but Xiaoyang assured everyone he knew what he was doing. All he needed was Brother Chong, and together, they'd go meet that thing. Meanwhile, a capable-looking group of drifters was searching Hurinfa for supplies. They found a large supermarket and got excited about how much they might take. Still, they knew it might already be mostly picked clean. Even so, they went in confident they could handle themselves in the apocalypse. Inside, they were swallowed by darkness. Once their eyes adjusted, they saw the store had been looted, but not emptied. To watch for survivors or hidden zombies, they stayed close and made a little noise. Then they listened for any movement. A few wandering zombies soon appeared, and the group stayed calm as they took them down. Working carefully together, they killed the undead in a clean, coordinated attack. Most of them were relieved there were only a few, guessing the main horde had been drawn away by earlier looters. Even so, they stayed alert while scavenging. What they didn't know was that something far smarter was hiding in the dark, waiting like a hunter stalking fresh prey. As they moved deeper inside, they felt lucky to find enough supplies to last for years. While the others were busy drooling over all the food, their leader got distracted by the bed section. She finally relaxed and happily flopped onto a soft mattress. A few of them even joked about living in the supermarket since it seemed to have everything. As the group kept exploring, 2 of the main members stepped out for a smoke and admitted that, tempting as it was, this place would make a bad base. It had too many entrances to defend, and all these supplies would attract raiders. A nearby 2-story building looked much better, but to settle down, they'd first have to survive. By then, the hunter had finally left the shadows and begun its attack on the living. One of the stragglers managed to scream for help, drawing everyone's attention. He ran back inside as fast as he could, but no one could outrun a super mutant. The beast drove the claws from its back straight through his chest, killing him in one brutal motion. The mutant ripped the poor guy apart like paper. The stragglers froze in horror. Someone shouted to run, but their legs almost gave out. They forced themselves to move, but their escape was hopeless. One after another, the slowest people in back were dragged down first. They poured every bit of their will to live into each step, hoping they could outrun the monster right behind them. A few seconds and a few meters later, everyone was dead except the female leader. She sprinted toward the exit and finally saw daylight ahead. She shoved herself forward with the last of her strength. But heels are a terrible choice when you're running for your life. The super mutant loomed over her, enjoying the fear of its last prey. She cried and threw up her arms, trying to protect herself. But when she looked up, she saw a different super mutant, one wearing a cool mask. Instead of tearing her apart, he simply walked past her. Zhang Xiaoyang followed behind and told her not to panic. He and the others had arrived just in time to save her. To her shock, she recognized him as the young man who bought a huge piece of land from her before the apocalypse. Xiaoyang recognized her too, the polite real estate agent from before. If he remembered right, her name was Ningguo, or Ning Wanwan. Their reunion was cut short by the sound of flesh tearing. Wanwan warned him about the monster in the mall, but Xiaoyang calmly said it was already being handled. She looked behind her and saw the 2 mutants facing off. The mall mutant viewed Brother Chong as a rival, while Brother Chong saw him as something to crush. It was the first time either of them had met one of their own kind, and both were eager to test the other. The mall mutant slashed with its long claws, barely missing Brother Chong's crotch. It even seemed to wonder if eating another mutant would help it evolve faster. As the mall mutant laughed, Brother Chong answered with a roaring punch. The blow was so heavy it smashed the monster's head into the tiled floor. Now the freak had to stop playing around and take Brother Chong seriously. Brother Chong lifted his foot over the monster's head. This was one time kicking someone while they're down was totally fair, but the naked freak was fast enough to leap away. Still laughing, the mall mutant seemed grateful to the humans it had eaten, growing stronger day by day. Brother Chong's instincts warned him of another attack. The mall mutant lunged right into his face, looking even more savage than before. The two traded dozens of blows in an instant. Zhang Qi started worrying that Brother Chong was losing ground for the first time. Xiaoyang, though, was glad they came. If this thing kept hunting, it might have become unstoppable. To swing the fight, Xiaoyang pulled out an AK AK-47 like it came from nowhere. He casually told Brother Chong to pin the beast for 1 second so they could finish this. As always, the dependable super mutant obeyed and focused on stopping the mall mutant's speed. Gunfire rang through the whole mall. One bullet tore through the monster's forehead, cracking its skull and blasting its brain to mush, but even that wasn't enough to kill a super mutant. It did hurt the beast though, and now it switched its focus to Xiaoyang. Zhang Qi was stunned. He had never seen something survive a clean headshot. If one bullet wasn't enough, Xiaoyang added more, then switched to full auto. The heavy rounds chewed up the mall mutant until it looked like rotten green cheese. When it finally collapsed, its body twitched as the last life left it. Xiaoyang suggested Brother Chong eat the super mutant. Maybe it would give him a big power boost. To his surprise, killing a threat like this also raised his community score and pushed his mission forward. Since the supermarket was still mostly untouched, they decided to grab supplies instead of leaving empty-handed. Xiaoyang's storage power made it easy. No trucks, no hauling, he could just stash everything in his separate space. Crude as it was, they figured the dead stragglers shouldn't be left to turn into zombies, so Brother Chong got dessert after his main meal. While Xiaoyang was gone, some rats started making moves. Boss Rui and a few subordinates followed the tire tracks to scout the enemy. From a distance, they studied the stronghold's size and defenses. Boss Rui's right-hand man judged that the base had a fair number of people but weak weapons. Their main edge was the sturdy warehouse. If that was all, then how had they wiped out Zhang Qingwen, Lin Guangkai, and everyone at Bichui Mountain Villa? Boss Rui guessed they must have used dirty tricks, maybe leading a zombie horde in. Full of herself, Boss Rui was already thanking heaven for handing her prey and a new base. For now, they needed to go back, gather their people and weapons, then strike when the fortress least expected it. The scouts turned around and drove off. Coming from the other direction, Xiaoyang's group was heading home. Zhang Qi told Wanwan their base had not just mattresses, but hot water too. Seeing other cars on the highway was rare now, so the group immediately tensed up and readied their weapons. The two cars passed in opposite directions, and neither side slowed down. But for one split second, Zhang Xiaoyang and Boss Rui sensed each other. A new mission appeared, Villain Nemesis Volume 1. If Xiaoyang stopped the invasion, he'd earn 50 points. He instantly felt those suspicious drivers had to be the invaders. To make sure, he went to Shanshan in the watchtower and asked if she'd noticed anything strange near the base. She said a car had passed in the distance but never came close enough to trigger alarm. That was enough for Xiaoyang. He called for Uncle Sheng and Old Li to gather everyone for an important meeting. Meanwhile, things at the coal plant in the southern suburb were going smoothly. Using a scratchy radio broadcast, Boss Rui's group lured survivors toward the plant with promises of a safe zone that needed workers. The survivors stayed alert. Anyone still alive this long had to be capable. Soon they spotted a car heading their way. It was Boss Rui and her people returning from scouting and welcoming the newcomers drawn in by the broadcast. The moment the survivors saw Boss Rui's looks, most of their good sense disappeared. She knew exactly how to use her charm to lower their guard. Smiling, she invited them into the camp. As they headed toward the coal plant, the survivors traded dirty little grins. They were led inside and stared at how large and clean the place was. It felt like they'd finally found a home. One of them said he needed to use the bathroom. Boss Rui offered to show him the indoor one, and the fool instantly took the bait. But she wasn't just helping him find the toilet. She stayed while he peed, openly sizing him up. Thinking it was an invitation, he told her not to be shy and bragged about how strong he was. One quick step and one stab ended all that talk. Boss Rui killed him cleanly. He never saw it coming. She had considered keeping him if he was worth it, but after seeing what he was working with, killing him was the easy choice. Outside, her subordinates had done their part too. Every survivor lured in by the radio was slaughtered. Back at the fortress, everyone answered Zhang Xiaoyang's call to discuss the coming battle. Old Li asked who would be crazy enough to target them. Xiaoyang said they still didn't know, and an attack could come any time. To prepare, Zhang Qi and Brother Chong would follow the boss to clear the unfinished building southeast of the base. The refugees had to be moved there so they wouldn't be exposed in the temporary housing area. Shan Shan and several others volunteered to help. Even the twins who looked nothing alike joined in. Caught up in the mood, even Lil Shuai volunteered, much to his mom's annoyance. Wanting to help too, Ning Wanwan offered to join the clearing team. While they went out, Uncle Sheng and Old Li would stay behind and guard the base. Everyone else would gear up. With Xiaoyang leading, a small army set out to clear the way for the war ahead. The moment they entered the southeast building, the place exploded into chaos as they cut down every zombie nearby. It was a brutal hunt, one that sharpened them for what was coming. After the first wave, Xiaoyang called for a break and checked on everyone. He warned them again that rough days were coming. For now, they would stay in the southeast building and clear it fully. When the refugees were brought in, they said they were willing to help fight too. The more Xiaoyang thought about it, the more he felt they needed more people who could fight, so he promised to send handguns and ammo later that day. If the enemy attacked, the southeast building and the fortress would stay in touch by walkie-talkie. Back at the coal plant, Boss Rui watched over their secret cannibal operation. Her number 2, who looked like he walked out of Full Metal Alchemist, and number 3 were both eager for a share of the fresh meat. Boss Rui was still furious that Beachway Mountain had been wiped out. Now they had to find food on their own. Number 2 and number 3 were obviously not happy about that. Still, they already knew who to hit for payback in the east suburb. Tomorrow morning, Boss Rui and number 2 would lead the attack on those normies. Back at the fortress, the work stopped for the night, and Zhang Xiaoyang finally checked the system. With 46 points saved up, he wanted to see the new daily crates. When he opened the store, he found a level 2 Awakening Power crate for 25 points, plus a level 2 Farming crate and a level 1 Sugar, Oil, and Protein crate. Just the 2 level 2 crates would cost 40 points, but he decided to spend big. When he opened the priciest crate he'd ever bought, he got the Overload skill. It boosts his physical stats by 25%, but after it ends, he'll be weakened. With his strength already crazy high, that extra 25% would push him into superhuman territory. He could hit about 8 times harder than an average Joe. Xiaoyang was dying to test the new skill on something or someone. The night stayed quiet, but the next day did not. A whole convoy of cars, trucks, and bikes rolled out from the southern suburb coal plant toward the east. Boss Rui went over the plan one last time. First, they'd drive through and kill the refugees outside. Then number 2 would break the gate, and everyone else would rush in with their modified vehicles and lay down covering fire. As for number 2, the starving freak didn't even bother wearing a shirt. As the enemy got closer, the fortress was already on full alert. Old Li took position at the highest spot. It gave a worse view than the watchtower, but no one below could see him. Xiaoyang put him there because Old Li had worked as a sniper for a few years before becoming a cop. Old Li scratched his head and corrected him. He'd only filled in as a sniper for a few months. Even so, he could reliably hit targets within 500 meters if the wind behaved. That would be more than enough to matter in this fight. You see, Xiaoyang had Zhang Qi carry something very heavy up to the roof. The young man opened the crate and found a spotless Barrett sniper rifle inside. Old Li was stunned. How did a kid like Xiaoyang get something like this? Xiaoyang didn't answer, only saying they had just 10 rounds, so every shot had to count. Old Li took the huge rifle, feeling both its weight and the pressure that came with it. Everyone else was in place and ready. Xiaoyang warned that the enemy could show up at any time today. Shanshan spotted something strange from the watchtower and quickly warned the others. Looking through his scope, Old Li confirmed it. A fleet of enemies was coming fast. Back in the modified car, Boss Rui's men were confused that the refugees outside the wall were gone. Instead of stopping to check, Boss Rui ordered them to keep pushing. They were already close enough to be seen, and stopping now would kill their momentum. And so the convoy rushed forward, aiming to reach cover by the wall. The moment they entered range, Shanshan gave the order to fire. Everyone along the wall pulled out pistols and AKs and opened up on the intruders. The coal plant group hadn't expected this much firepower. Instantly, bullets tore through windshields and bodies. This was meant to be a surprise attack, but they were the ones caught off guard. Boss Rui couldn't believe her plan had been exposed so soon, but it was too late to back out. She ordered everyone to keep charging, even as her people dropped left and right. For what it was worth, it worked a little. Some of them still made it to the base of the wall. What really mattered was getting number 2 and his giant automatic saw close to the gate. When he reached the door, number 2 hacked into the thick metal with brute force. Shanshan quickly warned everyone nearby that a monster was trying to break the gate. The people in the watchtower raised their rifles and fired. To make sure number 2 could keep working, Boss Rui and her men shot back with pistols and submachine guns. Under that pressure, the inexperienced defenders in the watchtower were forced back. Even Fatty Xiaokai got hit in the shoulder. Thankfully, it didn't look fatal. The enemy's aim and firepower were solid, and holding them back much longer would be hard. Some of the older folks tried to steady the younger fighters. They just had to hold on. They still had enough ammo for a long fight, but that wouldn't matter if the saw cut through the gate. Once it broke, they'd lose the advantage. Luckily, the calm boss already had a plan for after the breach. Xiaoyang quietly slipped out of the fortress, hiding his presence. Then he ran outside like bullets couldn't touch him. By now, Boss Rui's group had already used half their ammo, and number 2 still hadn't broken through. He needed only a few more seconds to open the entrance. The gate finally burst open. Shanshan and the Watchtower group rushed down to support the people below. Boss Rui smiled. It had been rough, but they were finally in. Now she'd see how these rookies handled an evolver powered by human flesh. Using number 2 as a moving shield, she told her men to stay close behind him. The monster dropped the saw and used pure strength to widen the opening. With a clear line on the enemy, Xiaoyang signaled Old Li that it was his moment. Li Hongli steadied his heartbeat and breathing, then lined up the big guy. Once that huge head showed itself, Old Li's crosshairs snapped onto it like he had aimbot. Number 2 roared, more beast than man. Anyone who saw him would agree. As soon as that monster came through the gate, morale dropped hard. They fired everything they had, but his skin was too tough. Their bullets barely did anything. Number 2 pushed forward and tanked the gunfire without even needing armor. No matter the caliber, the rounds only left tiny marks before bouncing off, and even those marks vanished fast thanks to his crazy healing. Boss Rui loved the fear on their faces. She figured this was the first time they'd ever seen an evolver's power. Then the signal reached Li Hongli on the roof. He trusted both his aim and the Barrett's power. The Barrett kicked hard as it fired. One pull of the trigger blew the monster's head apart into blood and brains. The seemingly unstoppable number 2 dropped dead. Boss Rui and her men were stunned. The big guy had been their only cover. Who would have thought this little base had a weapon like that? With their biggest shield gone, Xiaoyang finally appeared, flanking the intruders with his AK-47. He opened fire at once, snapping them out of their shock. For Xiaoyang, it was like shooting fish in a barrel. Boss Rui knew this disaster was her fault. She had underestimated them, and now her people were paying for it. Still, she wasn't going down easy. With a submachine gun in hand, she fired back while sprinting for the exit. With her teeth clenched, she desperately tried to escape. When she saw Xiaoyang's eyes, she finally realized he was the kid they had passed in the car the day before. To make sure she survived, she grabbed one of her own men. Without hesitating, she used him as a human shield. Xiaoyang noticed her inhuman reaction speed and realized she had to be an evolver too. After taking a burst of bullets behind her, the unlucky goon was thrown at the shooter blocking the exit. Xiaoyang had to dodge aside and stop firing. That brief opening was all Boss Rui needed to run for her car. Of course, old Li wasn't about to let one of these invaders leave after wrecking their peace. He lined up the shot and acted like his Barrett was the strongest thing under heaven and earth. Man really thought he was Gojo. He missed the clean headshot and had to settle for blasting her super fast legs. Losing a limb made Boss Rui crash to the ground just inches from her car. Li Hongli felt bad about missing the kill shot, and as he chambered another round, one of Boss Rui's underlings dragged her into the car. Those two clearly knew how to escape a disaster, and they managed to swerve away with their tails between their legs. Xiaoyang ordered everyone to stop shooting. He didn't mind if these idiots came back later. He was just happy the system mission was complete. The reward was 50 points, which lifted everyone's mood. On top of that, Volume 2 of the Nemesis mission unlocked. Now it was his turn to attack the cannibals' base for another easy 50. Everybody in the fortress celebrated the huge win. As for losses, a few people were hurt by gunfire, but no one died. The wounded were taken to the medical room to get cleaned up, while the enemy corpses were sent to cold storage for Brother Chong's dinner. Since the base was safe again, the refugees were allowed back to their housing. Once he was alone, Xiaoyang checked how many points he got from that one mission and got excited to spend them that night. Back at the coal plant in the southern suburbs, the survivors limped home with only 3 people left, and Boss Rui had lost a leg. Number 3 met them, confused and worried. Embarrassed, Boss Rui admitted she messed up. She never expected the enemy to have heavy weapons. Then she snapped at her men and demanded human meat to recover. Hearing her act like nothing happened, Number 3 slowly smiled. Boss Rui kept cursing them out, calling them useless and saying none of them were worth Number 2's toes. That was the last straw for Number 3. She was weak now and still talked down to everyone. Boss Rui never saw a rebellion coming. Panicked, she ordered her men to kill Number 3, but nobody moved. Even the 2 who carried her back acted like they heard nothing. With Boss Rui crippled and Number 2 dead, Number 3 was now the strongest and could easily take over. The men had already grown tired of Boss Rui's rule, and now they finally had their chance. Even then, Boss Rui still thought she could scare them into obeying. But when they closed in on her, her tough act broke fast. Following Number 3, the coal plant gang took out all their anger on her. They beat Boss Rui with metal pipes, laughing and cheering the whole time. They mocked her screams, and because she was still an evolver, the beating dragged on for a while. When she finally died, Number 3 grinned as he wiped her blood off his hands. One man called him Boss 3, and he nearly beat that guy to death for it. From now on, he demanded everyone call him Big Boss. Then the group started wondering what to do next. With Boss Rui and Number 2 gone, the coal plant was much weaker, and the thing they feared most wasn't the Eastern Fortress. It was the Tentacle Man. Big Boss decided they should abandon the plant and join the West Steel Group instead. A day later, Zhang Xiaoyang took a few trusted people behind enemy lines. Just like he thought, those guys had been staying at the coal plant. He told Zhang Qi and Old Li to keep quiet and stay close as they moved in. After looking around, they found the camp empty. The only thing left was the woman who led the attack yesterday, dead on the ground. It was clear her own people killed her. Zhang Qi and Old Li were shocked, but Xiaoyang had already guessed that would happen. Zhang Qi then asked about the huge guy who smashed through the door. He was clearly different from Chen Chong, but just as strange. Xiaoyang had mentioned evolvers before, and now even Old Li wanted to know how someone becomes one. Xiaoyang said it plainly. One way is by eating people. That answer was enough to make anyone sick. He explained that cannibalism is the fastest and easiest way to gain mutant-like powers. Since Xiaoyang also had superhuman abilities, Zhang Qi nervously asked if he had done the same, and whether they would have to throw away their humanity too. Xiaoyang stopped them right there. Cannibalism is the quickest path, but it isn't the only one. Then he pulled out a glowing red stone from his pocket. He explained that evolvers and zombies are both mutated life forms, and mutants grow stronger by absorbing exotic energy. Normal people have some too, but it's weak and spread through their bodies. Evolvers and some rare mutants condense that energy into cores. As the apocalypse goes on, even normal zombies will start forming them. Still, eating zombie meat sounded like a great way to become a zombie yourself. Xiaoyang said normal people can't just eat zombie meat. Only mutants like Brother Chong can do that safely and grow stronger. While they talked, Volume 2 of Xiaoyang's Nemesis mission cleared on its own. The coal plant group clearly wasn't a threat anymore. While Xiaoyang was checking his system window, a zombie nearly jumped him. Luckily, his reflexes saved him. He calmly calmly killed it with one quick knife draw. The zombie turned out to be a perfect example for what he was explaining. He reached in and pulled out its core, saying that with zombie numbers rising, hunting season was about to begin. Holding 2 cores now, he offered them to Zhang Qi and Li Hongli to help start their evolution. Zhang Qi still couldn't get over where they came from, so he passed. After thinking it over, Li Hongli chose strength over fear. He swallowed both cores at once. Old Li felt the effect right away. His body changed fast and he felt better than ever. But Xiaoyang reminded him that being an evolver doesn't make you unbeatable. Old Li took that seriously and promised he wouldn't get cocky. With the danger gone, it was time to head back. As the group returned home, the coal plant survivors were just arriving at the West Steel Mill. As soon as they entered, a guard stopped them. Big Boss number 3 introduced himself as the coal plant's representative. Still cautious, the guard told them to wait while he informed the steel mill leader. After some discussion, the coal plant group was allowed inside. The steel mill leaders immediately asked what happened to Jing Rui and number 2. Number 3 lied, saying they were attacked and lost both Boss Rui and the big guy. That immediately caught the bald boss's attention. He had the coal plant men taken to a so-called safe house. Meanwhile, Baldy met with his partner and quietly planned something. Number 3 and his men were locked inside that safe house. Even there, he kept correcting people about his new title. He was so busy with that nonsense that he didn't notice how suspicious the whole setup was. One of the men finally pointed it out. They weren't in a safe house at all. With bars and locked doors everywhere, it was obviously a prison. Before they could react, the guard from outside came in. He ordered everyone to come out. When they were brought back out, it looked like the whole steel mill had gathered. Number 3 carefully asked what was going on. The woman leader immediately guessed that he had betrayed Boss Rui and said that kind of crime had to be punished. Number 3 rushed to deny it, but it was already too late. Boss Ling didn't buy his excuse and called over her guard, Li Cheng, to report what he found. Li Cheng said he went to the coal plant and found Li Jingrui dead in the courtyard, while number 2 was gone. There were no signs of a fight there. The most likely answer was betrayal. Even after hearing that, number 3 kept denying everything. But in this world, nobody waits for proof or a fair trial. And honestly, the West Steel Mill had only tolerated the coal plant because of Boss Rui's power. Now that she was gone, number 3 had walked straight into a pack of hungry wolves. One of his men begged for mercy and offered information in exchange for his life. Boss Ling let him talk, though she didn't seem to care much. The snitch told them about the eastern settlement full of supplies, the same place where Boss Rui and number 2 were defeated. When asked how strong it was compared to the steel mill, he guessed they were about even. That was not something Boss Peng and Boss Ling could ignore. The man added that the Eastern group didn't know how to become evolvers yet, and none of them had evolved. Li Cheng listened closely and looked confused at the mention of evolvers. Boss Peng still couldn't believe Jing Rui lost to regular people, so the snitch explained that the Eastern group had heavy weapons, powerful enough to kill someone like number 2 in one shot. Boss Ling was pleased with the useful intel, but she had no intention of rewarding a rat. The moment she gave the order, the coal plant men froze in terror. They screamed and begged until every last voice was silenced. That was the end of the coal plant faction. Now Boss Peng was seriously worried about the eastern settlement. Boss Ling said they shouldn't attack yet, not with those heavy weapons around. Better to evolve more first and make sure they win. For now, they would send scouts to see if those people really were unevolved beginners. Meanwhile, Zhang Xiaoyang relaxed in his room, checking his system shop and looking through what he could buy with 126 points. To his surprise, a level 2 black tech supply box was available for 50 points. He bought out the whole shop without hesitation, leaving himself with 71 points. The sugar, oil, and protein crate gave him 500 kilos of top-grade lotus root powder, cocoa butter, and cooking oil. But the best item by far was the plus 20 physical enhancement serum from the black tech box. Then someone knocked on the door. Shan came in and told him they had caught a suspicious person sneaking around the perimeter. Xiaoyang got up and went to see what was going on. Zhang Qi and Old Li had caught the suspicious man, but he kept saying he wasn't an enemy. He only wanted to speak to the fortress leader. When Xiaoyang arrived, the guy finally started talking. He introduced himself politely as Xu Axing from Westwind Steel Mill. That name immediately put Uncle Sheng on alert. He knew Westwind was southwest of them, one of the biggest steel mills around. Like the coal plant, it had turned into a survivor base, and it was only about 3 kilometers away. If it was that close, why had Xu Axing come all the way here? Xu Axing puffed himself up and said survivors should work together in times like this. According to him, his leader sent him out to recruit other settlements. Xiaokai didn't buy it. The man had been sneaking around and drawing a map. When they pulled the map from his pocket, Xu Axing only gave an awkward smile. To make sure he wasn't being fooled, Xiaoyang used Mind's Eye. One look at Xu Axing's soul told him everything. The guy looked down on him. Xiaoyang didn't play nice. He pressed a gun to Axing's forehead without hesitation. The man had clearly taken him for a fool. If he didn't start telling the truth, he was dead. Seeing how serious Xiaoyang was, Axing gulped. Even so, he stuck to his story and claimed his group was just being careful. Xiaoyang pulled Zhang Qi aside and asked if Axing had ever seen Brother Chong. Luckily, he hadn't. so Xiaoyang told his men to let Shuaxing go. He even gave the hand-drawn map back. Shuaxing was thrilled, thinking his act had worked. He hurried out of the fortress before Xiaoyang could change his mind. Watching the obvious scout leave, Xiaoyang smiled. He was already wondering how many system points that West Wind Steel Mill might be worth. After that, 5 calm months passed. But over at West Steel Mill, people were getting nervous as more of their members vanished one by one. They knew who was behind it, yet couldn't stop it. The tentacle monster was active again, and no one knew what to do. Some trash collectors heard movement in the garbage heap and froze in fear. Before one of them could run back and report it, he was killed. A sharp blade ended him on the spot. The screams reached Li Cheng. He heard the cries coming from the trash pile. The only garbage boy who escaped blamed the tentacle monster for his friend's death. Any mention of that thing had to be taken seriously. This time it had attacked in broad daylight. Li Cheng grabbed his gun, told the civilians to hide, and brought along evolvers with escape-type abilities. When they reached the trash heap, they spotted a suspicious figure right away. Li Cheng told his men not to fight. If they were noticed, they were to run. After looking closer, he realized the monster they'd feared wasn't there. There were tracks on the ground. Maybe it had taken its prey and left. Ever since Beechtree Mountain and Southern Coal Plant were wiped out, disappearances had only gotten worse. Before, the monster hunted across different settlements. Now the steel mill was its only hunting ground. Still, Li Cheng felt this case wasn't the tentacle man's doing. Back at the fortress, the progress over those 5 months was obvious. Zhang Xiaoyang had already lived longer than in his last run. If things kept going like this, rebuilding civilization might really be possible. His community score had climbed to 38. Even after all this time, the system mission about dealing with West Steel Mill still hadn't appeared. Meanwhile, everyone in his inner circle had been busy. When Shanshan and the others returned from their mission, Xiaoyang casually showed off and jumped from the top of the wall to the ground. Zhang Xiaoyang reported that the hunt had gone well. With their current strength, no one could fight them or track them. Even Xiaoning had started joining the adults on hunts. Shuya had been watching over him outside, and he was growing into a strong fighter. Today he even killed a zombie by himself. Because of Villain Nemesis Volume 3, the Fortress team had been hunting zombies, removing threats, helping possible allies, and collecting every mutant core they found. Xiaoyang still wasn't sure about the potential allies part. Maybe the system meant West Steel Mill. Since the mission still hadn't triggered, he decided to act first and sneak into the mill alone. Old Li strongly objected. Uncle Sheng said they'd been dealing with enemy scouts around their land for months, so those people probably meant trouble. Xiaoyang reassured them. With his strength, even Brother Chong couldn't hurt him. They might as well find out now if the steel mill was friend or foe. He left Uncle Sheng, Old Li, and the rest of his inner circle in charge of the fortress and the nearby refugee town. The place would likely hold, but everyone's still worried. Without Xiaoyang, the settlement could fall apart. Back at the steel mill, Li Cheng returned from checking the trash heap. He tried to speak with the bosses, but the guards stopped him at the door. Annoyed, Li Cheng grabbed one by the throat and lifted him up. Then he realized he'd lost control again and forced himself to calm down. He set the guard down and apologized right away. The truth was, Li Cheng had been worried about these outbursts for months. He was having a harder time controlling his emotions. Once the bosses heard his voice, they allowed him in. Li Cheng entered carefully and found Boss Ling alone in her office. He offered another explanation for the recent disappearances. At one of the latest scenes, he'd found a woman's footprints, so maybe the tentacle man wasn't behind every death. Maybe another killer was out there. Boss Ling didn't reject the idea, but told him to keep quiet for now. The tentacle man had already scared the whole settlement enough. They couldn't risk making people too afraid to leave their homes. Li Cheng tried to argue, but when Boss Ling leaned in close, he folded and turned red. He awkwardly excused himself and said goodbye. Li Cheng was a tough man, but around Boss Ling, his brain stopped working. Then a mocking voice came from another room, calling her careless. Boss Ling snapped back that she could give the job to someone else if he hated her methods so much. The voice belonged to Baldy Peng, who was busy cutting up the garbage boy's corpse. These days, Ling did the killing and Baldy handled cleanup. They tossed away the heads and ate the bodies. At the same time, Xiaoyang kept clearing zombies as he made his way toward the steel mill. Once he got close, he needed a disguise. He pulled out a pair of scissors from his storage and did something insane. He cut his own hair with his eyes closed, then he scooped up dirt and smeared it all over his face. To finish the look, he put on glasses. For someone trying to look rough, he didn't look bad at all. When he got near the steel mill, one of the patrol guards spotted him. A stranger near the perimeter was bound to draw suspicion, but Xiaoyang just smiled and acted happy to find other survivors. Once the guard assumed he was alone, his attitude changed fast. He first asked how Xiaoyang had managed to survive out there so long. Xiaoyang made up a story about being part of a 10-person group that got wiped out by a zombie horde, leaving him as the only survivor. When asked about his strength, he said he was pretty capable. After surviving several zombie attacks, he'd gotten good at fighting the undead. The guard was really trying to find out whether he was an evolver. Since Xiaoyang said nothing about evolution, the guard gladly brought him inside. On the way, the guard explained that Xiaoyang had to pass a test first. From that alone, Xiaoyang could tell this steel mill was full of snakes. As they approached the entrance, Li Cheng noticed the stranger being escorted in. The patrol guard stumbled through an excuse, saying he was just taking the lone survivor somewhere private for a security check. Li Cheng wasn't having it. If they were searching him, they could do it right there. He took over and told the stranger to hand over any weapons before entering. Xiaoyang hesitated, saying he didn't like going unarmed into an unknown place. Li Cheng understood the caution, but rules were rules. Outsiders got disarmed or sent away. Still acting reluctant, Xiaoyang handed over his blade. Not that it mattered, he had plenty more in storage. Li Cheng then gave him a full pat-down to check for hidden weapons. Xiaoyang was a little surprised to find someone with actual principles in a place this rotten. It was very different from the savages at Bichui and the coal plant. Seeing that the stranger had survived outside with only a dagger, Li Cheng asked if he was an evolver, played dumb, and said he just felt stronger every day. To be safe, Li Cheng took him to the boss first. For now, Xiaoyang had to sit in their so-called reception room. It felt more like a jail cell. He could tell right away the door was reinforced like a prison door. A few minutes later, Boss Peng opened it and carefully stepped in, asking the stranger's name. Xiaoyang hesitated, then gave the fake name, Zhang Ye. Peng came to confirm whether Zhang Ye was really an evolver, and the quickest way was to test his body. So Baldy Peng suddenly hurled a hatchet straight at his face. Zhang Ye calmly tilted his head aside and let it slam into the wall. For a second he thought about striking back, but the bald man was clearly just testing him. So he stayed in character and shouted at Peng for nearly splitting his skull open. Peng burst out laughing. That dodge was proof enough. If he wasn't an evolver, he'd be dead. Since they were both evolvers, Peng pushed him to explain how he became one. He hinted he knew about the cannibalism method and warned Zhang Ye to keep it secret. Only a few people in the camp know, and if it leaks, Peng will know who to kill. To prove it, he lunged forward and acted like he was about to crush Zhang Ye's neck. Good thing it was just a threat. If Peng had really rushed him with a weapon, Xiaoyang would have fought back, and killing him now would ruin the mission reward. Peng seemed impressed that Zhang Ye reacted fast enough to pull a weapon. Still, he warned that while the kid was skilled, he was nowhere near Peng's level, so any thoughts of resisting should stay buried. After that little test, Peng told his men to treat Zhang Ye well, give him clean clothes, let him wash up, then bring him to the next meeting. After cleaning up, the now tidy Zhang Ye was taken to meet the other evolvers. Peng introduced Huang Ling as his partner, with Li Cheng and Huang Bin serving as settlement officers. Huang Bin would be the one showing the newcomer how things worked. Boss Ling praised Zhang Ye for finding the strongest camp nearby. Here, survival wasn't the problem. But if he wanted to eat well, he had to prove his worth. Zhang Ye promised to work hard and follow orders. Everything was falling into place. He had arrived just in time for Huang Bin's patrol. After choosing a Chang and a Xing, the group headed out. A Chang clearly didn't like the new guy joining them, but since Zhang Ye now knew the evolver's secret, this was the only squad he could be placed in. During the patrol, a Xing kept staring at him. Huang Bin, though, was fair and explained how the camp worked. In the steel mill, only Peng, Huang Ling, and this four-man team knew that eating human flesh was how they evolved. A Xing was Peng's cousin, and a Chang was Boss Ling's nephew. Since they're family, any leak would have to come from the outsider. That made Zhang Ye uneasy, especially with A Xing staring so hard. He recognized the old man, the same one Zhang Qi's group had caught sneaking around the fortress months earlier. Then there was Li Cheng. He was also an officer, strong and gifted, but he knew nothing about the evolution method. He absolutely couldn't learn they were still practicing cannibalism. If Li Cheng found out, 2 bodies would be hanging in the mill. That told Zhang Ye plenty. The bosses were clearly keeping Li Cheng down because his talent surpassed all of them. When they reached the edge of the area, Huang Bin told everyone to stop. They were near a small camp with 7 people. His team had watched them for 4 days and saw no signs of evolvers. When Zhang Ye asked if they were hunting them, Huang Bin laughed. He said raising was a better word and told Zhang Ye to change his way of thinking instead of clinging to morals. To these evolvers, normal humans weren't even the same species anymore. They saw themselves as the top predators. So the plan was simple. Capture the camp, keep them like livestock, and butcher them later. They didn't even need all 7. 5 or 6 would do, the rest could die here. For now, the new guy just had to watch how it was done. The small group had been living in peace for months, working every day to make their camp better. Then while they were fixing things up, a zombie horde suddenly reached their hidden shelter. The survivors grabbed their weapons and got ready to fight. But having guns means nothing if you freeze when it's time to fire. As his friends dropped one by one builder could only shake in terror, waiting to be next. Meanwhile, Zhang Ye and the patrol just watched from the side, listening to the screams. Huang Bin said this method was necessary. They didn't have enough supplies to feed more people. Once the zombies had thinned them out, Huang Bin's team finally moved in. One woman screamed as the monsters closed in on her. Then, in one quick strike, the zombies around her were cut down and beheaded. She froze in shock. A moment ago she thought she was dead, and now her savior was reaching out a hand. Huang Bin fought with a hammer, and a Xing used twin daggers, fast and deadly. After clearing the horde, Huang Bin introduced them as evolvers from West Wind Steel Plant. The survivors didn't know what an evolver was, but they were just grateful to be rescued. That short fight gave Zhang Ye useful info. Huang Bin's team seemed about as strong as Zhang Qi's subgroup. Then his whole body tensed as he felt a hungry presence nearby. He turned and spotted an open room in a building close by. Seeing no one there, he brushed it off as his imagination. Huang Bin called him back to help clean up. Even so, Zhang Ye couldn't stop thinking about that presence in the abandoned building. And he was right to worry. Something monstrous was hiding there. The clueless survivors even shared useful info. They still had supplies in a warehouse. Zhang Ye was left to oversee gathering them, while Huang Bin's men prepared to move a small truck later. He also had to stack the bodies of the people who had just died. The survivors who were still alive followed Huang Bin like he was their savior, which actually worked out great for Zhang Ye. It gave him room to move on his own. On the way back to the steel mill, the survivors kept thanking Huang Bin. One naive girl asked a Chung if the camp had a bath. The creep grabbed her right away and bragged that they had hot water and soap. Then the mood suddenly shifted when a Xing's instincts kicked in. Huang Bin noticed and got serious. He shouted for everyone to stay alert before whatever was coming reached them. A Chang still kept sticking close to the girl, even though she was clearly uncomfortable. A Xing may have sensed danger first, but he couldn't tell where it was coming from. Even so, he trusted his gut. Something was out there, and he was right. A Chang was the first to die when something sharp shot in and pierced his neck before he even knew what happened. Huang Bin panicked at once. He recognized that attack. The tentacle monster was here. The tentacle pulled back, leaving everyone tense. Then the creature was suddenly already inside Huang Bin's fighting range. While the group got torn apart by the monster, Zhang Ye calmly collected mutant cores from the dead zombies. Out of the whole horde, 2 zombies had dropped cores. Not a bad haul. He would have kept up the act and pocketed more if he hadn't heard desperate screams in the distance. Huang Bin was finished. The monster's tentacles had wrapped around his whole body. To end him, the beast squeezed until blood poured from every opening and even snapped one of his legs with a crack. The survivors were horrified. Even a Chang's hotshot act was gone. He looked ready to break down. Sensing he was the last real threat, the monster turned to the only evolver left. A Chang slowly backed away, frozen with fear. To save himself, he grabbed the girl he'd been creeping on and threw her into the tentacles to buy time. The monster gladly took the easy prey. Only this time, it wasn't anything pretty. Ended with a brutal, crushing death. But the woman wasn't done yet. Her real savior arrived in style, cutting through the tentacles and pulling her free. Maybe Zhang Ye and his knife really could handle the monster everyone feared. Zhang looked the creature over and didn't seem scared at all. That's because this wasn't the real tentacle monster, just one of its sons, as the steel mill people call them. See, the main monster often mutters the word son and can turn normal zombies into these tentacled freaks. Even Baldy Peng and Boss Ling would have trouble with one alone, or so a Chang believed. So he started looking for a chance to run. He shouted for Zhang Ye to hold it off while he got help, then sprinted away. Following his example, the terrified survivors ran too. Zhang Ye could hear the betrayal plain as day. That coward had just thrown him away. The tentacle's son recovered and went after Zhang Ye, mad about those cuts. The newly regrown tentacles wrapped around him, and he didn't even fight it. He was actually curious about this whole evolved mutant having offspring thing. He stayed so calm because he had the power to back it up. He wanted to test this nasty creature for himself. The two ended up in a tug of war with the tentacles between them. Then it hit Zhang Ye. He'd never really tested the ability he awakened months ago. Today felt like the time. He planted his feet hard, steady as a rock. Finally, he used physical overload, pushing his body to a terrifying level at once. The boost was absurd. Before he was only holding even. Now he was dragging the tentacle son across the ground. When it got close enough, he stopped it with one step. The beast couldn't speak, but its roar had changed. It sounded scared now. The only survivor who stayed behind watched in shock. A normal-looking young man was tearing apart the monster that had crushed a whole team of fighters with his bare hands. By the time Zhang Ye finished, its head, limbs, and body were ripped apart and scattered. Zhang Ye walked over and asked the woman if she was okay after nearly being crushed. Seeing all the blood on his face, she screamed in fear. Now she thought he was the real monster. Zhang Ye wiped his face, smiled, and told her he wasn't one. Meanwhile, a Chang and the others who fled finally reached the mill gates. At the entrance, Baldy Peng, Boss Ling, and Li Cheng met them and asked why A Chang looked wrecked and where the others were. A Chang quickly explained that Huang Bin and A Xing had been killed by a tentacle son. Li Cheng was the only one who asked about the new guy. A Chang assumed Zhang Ye was dead too. No way a rookie survived that. Hearing that his cousin died like that, Baldy Peng was furious. He didn't know where to put that rage, so he blamed the survivors. Baldy then started cutting them down on the spot with his hatchet. They couldn't afford to lose control, but at least Baldy calmed down after killing a few of them. Then, something interrupted the chaos. A bundle of tentacles dropped to the ground and grabbed everyone's attention. They looked up and saw the mill's newest member, Zhang Ye. He and the woman he saved showed up right after Baldy's outburst. Li Cheng was surprised and impressed that the rookie came back alive. Not only that, he returned showing off a rescued girl and a pile of tentacles as proof of the kill. He explained that he had taken down the tentacle son and avenged the boss's family. After doing something that big, the leader started seeing him differently. Breaking the silence, Zhang Ye asked for vehicles and men to help collect the bodies and loot. While he handled that job, the bosses questioned A Chang about what really happened. Even now, that coward still refused to believe Zhang Ye had killed a monster that wiped out the rest of the evolvers by itself. As far as A Chang knew, even Baldy and Boss Ling together would have had a long, bloody fight against it. Baldy was still stuck on his first impression. A guy who didn't even take a proper stance in the test shouldn't be this strong. So Boss Ling guessed the tentacle son only got those kills because it attacked by surprise. Still, they couldn't let someone that strong stay unchecked, especially with how close he'd gotten to Li Cheng. Boss Ling suddenly heard footsteps and told everyone to be quiet. Li Cheng came in with a proposal for the bosses. First, he offered condolences for A Chang and Huang Bin. Then he suggested making Zhang Ye an officer because of his strength. Baldy Peng rejected it right away. They knew nothing about the kid. Boss Ling cut him off before he said more. She believed Zhang Ye did have officer-level strength, but he'd need to prove it to the whole mill. Li Cheng argued that killing a tentacle son should already prove enough. enough. Since they were discussing it, Boss Ling suggested testing him on the real tentacle monster. If Zhang Ye could kill it, they'd solve 2 problems at once. Li Cheng angrily said that was unfair. Even both bosses together couldn't do that. Boss Ling said it wouldn't be a suicide mission. The whole steel mill would move together. It was time to end that threat for good. As soon as he got back from hauling supplies and bodies, the bosses explained the plan to Zhang Ye. He was surprised they were building a plan around him after such a short time. Boss Ling played to his pride, saying he might be the strongest fighter in the settlement. Baldy Peng added that if the mission worked, Zhang Ye would get the 3rd leadership seat. He then mockingly asked Li Cheng if he was fine with the new guy outranking him. Li Cheng forced himself to agree. With that settled, the plan would move in 2 days. Zhang Ye had to admit they were good actors. He might have believed them if Mind's Eye hadn't let him see their rotten intentions. We've spent enough time at the steel mill. Back at the Eastern Fortress, everyone was on edge. Their boss, working undercover in enemy territory, was calling in. Old Li and the others grabbed the walkie-talkie and listened closely. Xiaoyang reported the plan to take down the mill. In 2 days, they'd meet at the South Suburban Park. It was finally time to wipe out the last big threat in the area. Old Li took over the detailed planning. Everyone agreed Uncle Sheng should stay behind because of his age, and because the base still needed him. This mission carried bigger risks than anything before. Their best fighters had to be ready. Brother Chong, Shan Shan, Zhang Qi, and the rest of that team would be key. In the corner of the room, little Shuai insisted he wanted to fight too. His mom quickly shot that down. War was for adults, not kids. But she hadn't seen him during their hunting runs. Little Shuai was no weakling. Even among the core team, he could hold his own. Old Li needed every capable hand, and in times like this, it was better for little Shuai to gain experience early. 2 days passed fast, and the hunt began. Baldy Peng and Boss Ling led everyone to the tentacle monster's last known location. The disguised Zhang Ye asked how they would lure it out, and Baldy told him not to rush. They had a plan. Right then, Zhang Ye quietly checked the whole area. He turned his eyes to a nearby building and spotted the signal from his fortress team. Up on the roof, they were fully armed and watching from above. They couldn't move any closer because their boss had ordered them to stay back until it was time. For now, all they could do was set the ropes. Once things started, they'd strike from the side. Down below, Boss Ling called over one of the skinny porters carrying supplies. The boy looked up and asked what she wanted. With a cold smile, she told him to go into the park. The porters were only there to carry gear and loot, and Li Cheng could not just watch while she did something this cruel. In Boss Ling's mind, no bait was better than a young boy. The monster kept muttering about a son, so they would give it one. She promised they'd save him once the monster appeared. The starving porter was terrified. No one wanted to be bait. Baldy Peng stepped in. He grabbed the boy by the collar and threatened him if he refused. Then with his evolver strength, he hurled the poor kid deep into the park. The throw was so hard it probably hurt him badly. Up in the building, old Li stayed alert as things finally started moving. He gave the signal, and everyone started climbing the building with ropes. In the middle of the park, the skinny boy got up, staggered around, and cried for help. Nobody answered. Then a loud voice boomed through the area, muttering, "Son." Finally, the boss monster showed itself. The tentacle creature looked like the one Zhang Ye killed before, but this one seemed more human. Its eyes glowed with rage and killing intent. Li Cheng shouted at the bosses to stop standing around and save the boy now that the target had appeared. When no one moved, he tried to rush in himself, but someone grabbed him. Boss Ling stopped him, saying Zhang Ye had to act first. If anyone else attacked now, they'd be stealing the credit. Zhang Ye just smiled at how ridiculous that sounded. The masks were finally coming off. Before the tentacles could reach the kid, Zhang Ye already burst forward at superhuman speed. Luckily, he beat the tentacles, grabbed the boy by the shirt, and threw the little bald kid back to safety. Li Cheng caught him cleanly. The monster was furious at Zhang Ye for interfering, and with his fake glasses gone, Zhang Xiaoyang was back. The tentacle monster wrapped around him and pulled him in. Up close, Xiaoyang noticed something strange. Once the kid was safe, Li Cheng was ready to join the fight, but before he could help, the bosses held him back. If they don't move now, Zhang Ye will die. Li Cheng still didn't get that this was the whole point. Boss Ling actually found him funny. She thought the kid could at least stall the monster to a draw, but now he was trapped and crushed still. Maybe his earlier kill was just luck. Li Cheng's idiot self never saw the setup at all. Instead of letting those devils explain, Zhang Xiaoyang spoke up. Without holding back, he exposed the steel mill bosses for eating people. Once again, Li Cheng had no idea what he meant. Right then, the Eastern Fortress crew opened fire on the enemy evolvers. Their rifles and handguns lit up the park, hitting the steel mill group from the side. They split into 2 teams. One held off the evolvers, the other helped Xiaoyang fight the tentacle monster. Little Shuai led that second team with a Molotov in hand. The kid was wild. He hurled it with all his strength, and the monster instinctively slapped it with its tentacles. That splashed oil all over the beast and spread the flames. But instead of reacting to the fire, the monster stared at the boy who threw it. It was like part of his human mind came back the moment he saw little Shuai. He completely forgot about the man he was holding. Meanwhile, the kid was cursing because his firebomb didn't work. Hearing little Shuai swear made the monster even more emotional. Since he could speak clearly, this wasn't some normal mutant. Good thing they had one on their side too. Brother Chong moved in. His legs were fast enough to dodge the tentacles, making them smash only the ground. Meanwhile, the steel mill group had been forced back behind cover. They watched in shock as another mutant fought the one they feared most. The idea of a mutant helping humans made no sense to them. Brother Chong dodged well, but he still couldn't get close enough to strike. For a moment, the tentacles trapped him in a cage. With raw strength, he tore through them and broke free. But that was only a distraction. The real attack came from behind. If his teammate hadn't warned him, the main tentacle would have punched through the back of his head. After a hard exchange, both mutants pulled back to breathe. Seeing Brother Chong struggle, the still captured Xiaoyang laughed and teased him. Baldy Peng was stunned. The brat they picked up a few days ago was joking with a mutant. Then, to make it even crazier, Xiaoyang ripped apart the tentacles holding him like they were paper. Zhang finally noticed that one of the attackers had called Zhang Ye Xiaoyang. Old Zhuqiang had mentioned before that the Eastern Fortress leader had that exact name. Now it all made sense. The young man had fooled them, and this whole hunt was a trap. That meant the steel mill crew was the real prey, facing the main force of a strong fortress. Boss Ling looked over the enemy side and tried to think through the trap. She guessed their strongest fighter was only about as strong as Li Cheng, but their guns gave them a huge edge. On top of that, their biggest problem was Zhang Xiaoyang, and to make it worse, that masked mutant seemed about equal to the tentacle monster. Boss Ling realized winning was nearly impossible. Even if they fought back, they'd take heavy losses. But she did have one possible plan. For now, Baldy Peng needed to hold the fortress crew back. Those two had worked together a long time and knew how to cover each other. Baldy threw his hatchet with insane force and it heated up like a meteor. When it hit near the fortress crew, it exploded and kicked up a thick cloud of dust, cutting off their sight. Baldy Peng kept going, spamming heavy attacks while the normal fighters gave cover fire. That kind of chaos pinned Old Li's group down and forced them into cover. While everyone was busy, Boss Ling focused on someone else. The youngest fighter up front, Little Shuai. Xiao Kai was the only one who saw her coming, and he threw himself in front of the boy. He tried to lift his guard, but Boss Ling's kick was too fast. Fatty Kai went stumbling away. He was no match for an elite evolver. Finally, Boss Ling's plan was right in front of her. She grabbed Little Shuai by the collar, and everyone froze. This was the worst outcome. Little Shuai didn't want to become a hostage, and he struggled hard, but couldn't break free. To stop him from fighting back, Boss Ling punched him straight in the face. The one hit hardest by that wasn't the boy, it was the tentacle monster. Roaring for his son, it flew into a rage. Brother Chong used that opening to rush in and get into position. While perched on the monster's shoulders, he noticed something strange. The beast was ignoring him. Xiaoyang told Brother Chong to let go of the big guy. That only confused him more. But Xiaoyang could tell the monster was ready to risk everything for something that mattered most. Getting in its way was a bad idea. With her hand around Little Shuai's neck, Boss Ling warned the fortress crew she'd snap the boy's head off if they didn't drop their weapons. Li Hongli begged her to take him instead of the kid. Seeing the fortress crew panic, Boss Ling felt great about her hostage play. If anything happened to Little Shuai, how could they ever face his mother back at camp? Boss Ling repeated her demand. Drop every weapon and back up 100 meters. Old Li chose the safe option and lowered his gun, telling the others to do the same. They had no leverage, but Boss Ling still wasn't done. Next, she ordered the masked mutant to kill the tentacle monster. She was so caught up in her control that she missed the attack coming. The tentacle monster shot at her like a missile, forcing her to drop the hostage and leap away. A few unlucky goons got caught in the path and were torn apart. Baldy Peng watched in horror as another revolver under him was turned into a bloody mess. Boss Ling had assumed the masked mutant was holding the main threat down, but when she looked at Zhang Xiaoyang, he was just grinning at her. The mutant stood beside him, and both of them were barely even paying attention to the fight. Li Hongli yelled for Little Shuai to run, but tentacles had already closed around him. Xiaoyang told everyone not to panic. Little Shuai was safe. Safe tentacles, basically. Of course, nobody understood what he meant. All they saw was the boy wrapped in deadly tentacles. But somehow this time the monster held him gently while calling him son. Xiaoyang then reminded them he'd promised to keep Jiang Shengji's wife and son alive. Yeah. They had met this horrifying monster before. Jiang Shengji must have the same kind of mutation as Brother Chong. When Little Shuai recognized what was left of his father in that monster, he burst into tears. Watching from the side, Baldy Peng called this whole thing insane and ordered a retreat. Too bad for him and the steel mill crew. They had made an enemy of something beyond them. Still cradling his son carefully, Shengji sent his tentacles out for revenge. Baldy Peng was the first to get caught and crushed. He screamed for Boss Ling to help and cut the tentacles off. They had always covered each other before, but not now. Huang Ling turned and ran straight for the trees. Boss Ling tried to save herself and ditch everyone else. She knew they were no match for the monster, so her only plan was to use Wang Depeng as bait and hope he lasted long enough. Too bad for her, that plan was doomed from the start. She wasn't fast enough, and the tentacles caught her ankles before she could get away. That sent her face first into the pavement. Her glasses shattered and her nose went with them. Right away, she knew this was about to get ugly. The tentacles dragged her back into the park without mercy. Baldy Peng actually smiled. She had tried to throw him away, so seeing her dragged back felt like justice. Even so, Peng still wanted to use whatever help he had left, so he turned to Li Cheng. Before that loyal idiot could help the boss who had already sold him out, Zhang Xiaoyang blinked behind him for a quick word. His offer was simple. Stay still, and Li Cheng gets to live. Xiao Yang was letting the tentacle monster handle the rest. Pure slaughter. It started with Baldy Peng. His shiny bald head got slammed into the ground. The first hit left him dizzy, probably a concussion on the spot. Then Shengji finished the job fast. The tentacles whipped him apart with brutal force until flesh, guts, and eyes were all mixed together. With Baldy Peng gone, Boss Ling was next. Her strength meant nothing in that crushing grip. Now her life was in those dark, slimy tentacles. Her death was slow and cruel as the pressure kept rising until blood poured from every opening. The crushing only got stronger until she was reduced to a lump of meat. Shengji gave her the worst death possible for taking his son hostage. With the last boss dead, Nemesis of Evil Volume 3 was complete. Xiaoyang earned 80 more points, bringing his total to 151. Now he finally understood why the mission mentioned a possible ally. Somehow he had gained another mutant. Then he turned to Li Cheng, who clearly had questions. First, he asked if Xiaoyang was the leader of the East Fortress. The next question was about the cannibalism mentioned earlier in the chaos. Xiaoyang answered bluntly, "People do not become evolvers through luck alone." Slowly, Li Cheng started putting the pieces together. He remembered the early days at the steel mill, when he looked after a woman and her daughter. One day, the little girl asked for some of his canned meat. He gave it to her without a second thought, thinking it was nothing serious. Then the truth hit him, and he froze like he was about to snap. A few days after he shared that meat, the first so-called tentacle monster attacks began. The woman he had been helping lost her daughter. Now he realized those attacks were just a cover to thin the herd and kill their own people. The thought made him sick. That canned meat given to the stronger fighters was made from human flesh. The steel mill bosses turned him into an evolver by tricking him into cannibalism. Li Cheng lost it. He punched the bloody mess that used to be his boss, screaming until blood splashed all over him. By the time he wore himself out, he looked freshly born and red. Then he faced Xiaoyang, bared his teeth, and asked if he had gained power the same horrible way. Li Hongli stepped in and cleared the air. They were not cannibals, just better informed than most survivors. With Xiaoyang's knowledge, they knew other ways to grow stronger. To prove it, Xiaoyang handed Li Cheng a mutant core. Mutant cores are rarer than human flesh, but far stronger and free of those nasty side effects. Li Cheng had likely felt those effects already. Evolvers made through cannibalism struggle with strong emotions and become more likely to snap or turn violent. Sadly, Li Cheng could not go back to who he was before. All he could do now was stop eating human flesh so the urges would not get worse. As for Shengji, Xiaoyang was just happy the father and son had found each other again. When asked if he could talk clearly, Shengji answered in broken, hard-to-understand words. He could only piece together rough phrases. Still, Xiaoyang seemed to understand him just fine. Like Brother Chong, Shengji's mutation damaged his speech, but not his mind. Bringing him back to base like this would only terrify people. Luckily, Shengji was used to living in the city. Seeing his son safe was enough for him. He called Xiaoyang super high IQ, his way of saying the kid was smart. With every threat gone, Westwind Steel Mill had no leader left. Maybe Li Cheng could take charge, but after learning he had become a cannibal, he no longer trusted himself to lead. So Xiaoyang put Li Hongli in charge of overseeing the steel mill, and the former cop agreed. As for Li Cheng, he promised to keep the darkness inside him under control if he joined the fortress. While the mess in the park was ending, something serious was happening near the edge of City S. A group of survivors was under attack. Strange creatures chased them through a city covered in green haze. They had to make brutal choices, leaving behind anyone who could not be saved. Once those vine-like monsters got close, the only move was to run. So they did. The people left behind died horribly. As the green fog spread, the plants kept taking over. By the time they finished feeding, the victim was no longer recognizable. Then a corpse controlled by living plant monsters stood back up. City S had become a nightmare. The group kept shrinking as they fled, and one woman finally ran out of breath. Her boyfriend tried to drag her forward, warning that stopping meant getting torn apart. Then a strange sound came from nearby. When they listened closely, they realized it was wind, which meant the edge of the forest was close. The way out was near, but so were the mutants. They could not waste even a second. The couple at the back tried to encourage each other. Safety was almost there. After a few more minutes, they finally saw light ahead. Then the woman got snagged by a loose vine that moved like it could see. It wrapped around her neck and lifted her into the air, cutting off her breath. The vine belonged to a giant Venus flytrap mutant, and everything happened in an instant. Her body was torn in half. The lower half dropped to the ground. Her boyfriend completely broke down, screaming about Xiao Tong and losing his mind. But the group had no time to mourn. The plant mutants were already close enough to hear. Their leader slapped the man hard to snap him out of it. Xiao Tong was dead, and nothing could change that. Now he had to choose whether he wanted to keep living. In the end, the group escaped the forest and entered another city. The plant mutants kept coming after them, slow but steady. They lacked speed, but made up for it with numbers. Their leader kept moving until he found a place he recognized. He was sure they had reached M City Wilderness Park. What felt strange was how empty it was. No people, no zombies, nothing. After what happened in City S, maybe everyone here had evacuated too. Then the group spotted someone hiding by a street pole, and not very well. Since the figure did not attack, they assumed he was human and asked where the evacuation point was. Big mistake. The one they asked was Zhang Shengji, the tentacle monster. Once he showed his dark skin, black eyes, and writhing tentacles, the survivors realized just how badly they had messed up. They took off running again, and did not stop until they thought the monster was gone. Then they wondered if even the land outside the forest had already fallen. Before they could rest, the plant hunters found them again. Now they were trapped. The mutants had surrounded them from every side. The survivors began to break. Some thought they might have lasted longer if they had stayed in the forest. Maybe Xiaotong would still be alive. As the plant mutants closed in, the men faced a grim choice. Their leader looked ready to kill himself before letting those creatures do it. Luckily, it did not come to that. Shengji's tentacles shot across the street and ripped the heads off the weaker plant mutants with ease. This was his turf, and he was not letting invaders into the park. Back at the eastern fortress, Zhang Xiaoyang stood under the moon, quietly staring over everything he had built. His utopia plan is going great. The community score is now 62, and his shop points hit 231. At this point, Xiaoyang is basically rich. With that many points, the daily shop feels pretty nice. Today he can get a level 2 armed deterrence box for 20, a level 2 black tech box for 50, or a level 3 superpower awakening box for 100. That last item even shocked Xiaoyang. He instantly started spending and cleared the whole shop. The armed deterrence box gave him an armored jeep. The black tech box had another physical enhancement serum. And the superpower box gave him a level 1 enslavement mark. That skill lets him enslave one living thing, but he has no reason to use it yet. Brother Chong, Brother Shengji, and Li Cheng are all still steady. Right after that shopping spree, a new chance to earn points appeared. The mission called Weed Control Volume 1 had officially started. At first, he thought it was just about gardening. Then Brother Shengji updated him about the army of plant mutants moving in, and the mission made a lot more sense. Later that night, people from the fortress gathered outside the wall to carefully watch the tentacle monster. Shengji brought the survivors he saved to the east side to meet the boss, dragging a plant mutant corpse along for inspection. From the crowd, Shengji's wife and son ran to him in joy. He could say the words, but wife was gone from his brain, so he called her, "Marry me." Even now, Xiaoyang is the only one who can easily understand his broken way of talking. The family reunion was strange but sweet, with tears and hugs all around. Xiaoyang wasted no time and started checking the dried-up mutant corpse. Shengji tried to explain, but he didn't have enough words to tell it clearly, so the survivor leader took over. They came from City S and were driven out by these plant mutants. City M isn't safe either, but it's still in much better shape than City S. On the way to the fortress, the new group saw plenty of zombies wandering around. Xiaoyang sent one of his men to bring back the armored jeep he had parked 2 blocks away. Tonight, he wants to check the border between the two cities. With the armored jeep and the survivor guiding them, they got there smoothly. Only a few hours had passed, but the vines had already grown much taller and spread even farther. To understand the problem better, Xiaoyang wants to head deeper into the jungle. The survivor had just escaped that nightmare, so of course he wanted no part of going back. But ignoring it isn't an option. If this keeps up, the nearby Westwind steel mill will be swallowed, and both production and daily life will take a hit. Still, before pushing deeper in, Xiaoyang decides something else should come first. He wants his people stronger, so they can handle danger without relying on him every time. Old Li and the new steel mill crew will join too. For the next few days, everyone is going on a big hunting run. As for the steel mill, another mutant is lurking nearby, and it's been feeding on zombies. Luckily, they won't have to deal with that ugly thing for long. Tonight, Xiaoyang moves like an assassin. With one clean slash, he killed the zombie-eating mutant. Once the big threat was gone, the rest of the crew could really cut loose with their guns. They poured bullets into the normal zombies marching through the city. Under Xiaoyang's command, they searched the bodies and collected mutant cores. They kept repeating the process, slowly building up their supplies. What they didn't know was that an overfed evolver had been roaming the city, hunting for fresh human meat. Normal zombies aren't a threat to him at all. He can kill regular walkers with ease. Since humans have become harder to find, he's been stuck roasting zombie meat. All he really wants is clean human flesh. And luckily for him, the smell of his favorite food is drifting right to him. Under Li Hongli, the steel mill has been running better, but their new guns are making some guards way too cocky. Some are even leaving the perimeter just to shoot zombies for fun. That's the scent the buff evolver picked up. He licked his lips, craving the best kind of meat. Humans who haven't eaten their own kind. The so-called pure humans. Still, he isn't stupid. He can tell those people have heavy firepower, so charging in alone would be risky. He knows he should wait a few more days, but just thinking about waiting makes him drool like a starving dog. Back at the fortress, Xiaoyang is messing with the system shop again. After that, he calls everyone together. They've been hunting as a team for 3 days now. He tells Li Hongli and Zhang Qi to divide up all the gains. Old Li objects, saying they can't keep all the resources when everyone helped with the hunts. Xiaoyang shuts that down. The others already have plenty of guns and ammo. What they need now is a few elite fighters, not a bunch of half-grown evolvers from spreading cores evenly. Besides, everyone trusts his judgment. Xiaoyang has never led them wrong. As for Shanshan, he has something different in mind. He brings her into a private room, just the two of them. A little nervous, she asks what he's about to do. Outside, little Shuai, Wanwan, Zhangqi, and Brother Chong listen in. All they hear is the boss telling her to bear with the pain. A few minutes later, the door opens and catches the whole nosy group. Zhangqi awkwardly swallows and blurts out that Brother Xiaoyang finished pretty fast. They really thought he and Shanshan were doing that. Still, it's good Zhangqi is there. Shanshan is holding her arm, and an empty syringe sits on the table. So yes, she did get poked. After taking in so many mutant cores, Zhangqi has become one of the settlement's strongest fighters. Now Xiaoyang wants him to spar with the newly boosted Shanshan. Zhang Qi refuses at first. He says he doesn't hit girls. So Xiaoyang tells Shanshan to slap him, and not to hold back. Zhang Qi feels pretty confident in his toughness after all those mutant cores. Then Shanshan slapped him so hard it nearly wrecked his jaw and twisted his whole face. Brother Chong and Xiao Kai had to step in and stop things. Shanshan is stunned by her new strength. Xiaoyang had injected her with a physical enhancement serum, putting her just below Brother Chong. Zhang Qi clearly thought he ranked much higher than that. And of course, Xiao Kai couldn't resist clowning him for looking so miserable. Once everything was ready, Xiaoyang gave everyone their roles for the forest mission. Along with his best fighters, he chose the new survivor leader to guide them. The man shut that down immediately. He escaped that place once and swore never to return. Li Cheng mocked him for backing out, but the man had a point. He had no family or friends left in that city, so he'd rather stay in the fortress and work. So the guy who lost his girl volunteered to be their guide instead. Meanwhile, in the western suburbs, the buff evolvers are searching building after building for someone. His brain is getting slower every day. If he doesn't eat fresh human meat soon, it'll only get worse. While he was banging on his head, he heard another pounding sound in the distance. He rushed over, following the noise. When he opened the metal door of an abandoned building, he found two couples going at it like wild animals. The buff evolver cleared his throat to make them stop and look at him. All four recognized him right away, and none of them were glad to see him. He told them he wasn't here to steal this time. He came with information. The women didn't trust a word he said. Everyone there had already accepted being half monsters, so lying would be pointless. He swore he was telling the truth. He found a group of pure humans, heavily armed, and wanted help hunting them. The half monsters crowded around him, watching every move and word. In the end, they agreed to trust him this once. If he was lying, they'd just eat him. Just like that, he was welcomed into the group. Then the redhead half monster gave him a very warm welcome of her own, and he wasn't about to turn that down. While that weird scene played out in the city, Xiaoyang's team had reached the border. Their guide is Zhu Xingkai, the man still grieving his girl, and Xiaoyang praises his courage. Xingkai says he wants revenge on the plant mutants that killed her. On top of that, his parents are still trapped in the jungle. Xiaoyang takes point, Li Cheng guards the rear, Brother Chong and Shengji cover the left and right, and Xingkai stays in the middle. Xiaoyang only took this dangerous trip to stop the jungle from spreading into his land. Any rescue comes second. Suddenly, a wet vine dropped and splashed sticky slime on his face. Xingkai instantly went on alert. He had seen that slime before and shouted for the boss to move, but it was too late. The slimy vine wrapped around Xiaoyang's neck like a python. Then the giant Venus flytrap appeared, the same monster that bit Xiaotang in half. No one had ever escaped its mouth before, but that was about to change. Xiaoyang grabbed the vine and pulled without fear. He yanked so hard the creature's nasty insides came spilling out. Xingkai was stunned and could barely speak. The guts dropped to the ground with a heavy thud in front of the boss. They wriggled there like a slimy bag of grapes. The flytrap knew it was in trouble and tried to run. Xiaoyang didn't bother chasing it and sent Shengji after it. The mutant didn't let him down. His tentacles shot out and caught the plant. Once he had it tight, he yanked it back and slammed it down. To everyone's surprise, the flytrap released a cloud of green gas as a defense. For some reason, it didn't feel dangerous at all. It actually smelled nice. But Xiaoyang got wary. Smoke that smells that good can't mean anything good. He was about to tell everyone to cover their noses, when all the light around him seemed to disappear. The others were trapped in their own strange visions too. Xingkai felt a weird pounding in his head. When he looked around, the others were frozen in place. Then something rustled in a nearby bush. A woman stepped out and called his name. When he looked closer, it was Xiao Tong. He still remembered her death clearly, so seeing her again shattered his reason. He moved toward her, caught between relief and disbelief. Xiao Tong waved him closer and said the other survivors were nearby. Completely drawn in, Xingkai followed her voice. At the same time, the raid on the steel mill had started. The half-monsters reached the factory packed with pure human prey. One of them started drooling the moment he smelled them. Nothing got him going like fresh human meat. The others told him to calm down, but hunger had already taken over. Before they could stop him, he rushed in. He charged blindly, ready to eat without any plan. The guards spotted him right away, but they were too slow. Before they could even raise their rifles, one of them was already eaten. The gunfire alerted Li Hongli. The guards had dealt with zombies before, but a half-monster was way beyond them. Their AKs did nothing. Every shot healed almost at once. Ignoring the bullets, the hunter kept feeding. He would have wiped out the outer guards if old Li hadn't arrived and kicked him in the stomach. That one hit sent him spinning. He regained control mid-air and landed cleanly. At this distance, old Li could keep blasting him with heavy rounds. The idiot had to fall back. Far away meant bullets. Up close meant a beating. Old Li ordered his men to carry the wounded to the infirmary and stop the bleeding. The half-monster limped back to his group, hurt and humiliated. He didn't even make it all the way before collapsing. His group showed no pity. They had warned him to wait, but he was too stupid to listen. He snapped at them to quit messing around and bring him meat so he could heal. But that's not how their group works. If you're weak and dumb, you get left behind. Even then, he was still arrogant. Annoyed by his whining, one of the girls crushed the back of his neck until he stopped moving. Less mouths to feed meant more meat for the rest. With that, the 4 remaining half-monsters made a plan to get inside the factory. While the boys were still thinking, the girls already had the answer. They still looked human, so they could just walk in through the front gate. Back in the woods, Xingkai hesitated when he felt something unnatural girl, pulling him toward Xiao Tong. The fake was getting impatient, and her disguise was starting to fail. Before she could touch him, a flying knife cut off the shapeshifter's head. For the second time in just a few days, Shinkai had to watch his girl die. The knife came from Xiaoyang, who had also been briefly caught by the illusion. Still shaken, Shinkai turned his anger on the boss. Xiaoyang made him look at the bushes again. Little by little, the bloody illusion faded, and the truth showed itself. It was only a tangled mass of vines. After that, Xiaoyang went around snapping the others out of their illusions. Li Cheng felt like years had passed, and even the two mutants had been affected. Xiaoyang guessed the flower had released some kind of hallucinogenic gas. To learn more, he cut into the vine bundle to study its insides. But the thing he killed was only a puppet, not the real body. The vines ran deep underground, so the main body was probably far away. While following the roots, he dug up something odd. It looked like a potato or taro, maybe some kind of storage organ for the plant. Just in case, he tossed it into his dimensional space. Maybe it was edible. Then he asked Jinkai what he knew about these plant monsters, but Jinkai only knew they were dangerous. Old He might know more. Old He was an expert from the Agricultural and Forest Research Institute. Before Jinkai escaped, the old man had been staying in a high-rise camp. Wanting answers, Xiaoyang changed course to find him. Back at the steel mill, the half-monsters put their simple plan into action. Red limped to the front gate, acting scared and worn out while making sure her body was still on display. To make it more convincing, she stumbled and fell near the gate. One of the guards on the wall spotted her. The others quickly gathered, thinking a survivor was running for shelter. But protocol started slipping the moment they got a good look at Red. One guard wanted to report her first, but another just wanted to bring her inside. Red cried for help, and the fool bought all of it. From a distance, the other half-monsters watched with amusement. Even they had to admit Red was doing a great job. Of course, the other girl refused to be outdone. She insisted she could do even better. Either way, Red had basically secured a way into the human nest. Back in the woods, the group struggled through the dim jungle, but they reached the next city without more trouble. Once they got close to the old camp, someone from inside called Shinkai's name. It was his Aunt Yang, peeking out from behind a wall. Normally, he would have run straight to her, but after what happened earlier, he stopped himself. He rubbed his eyes, and Xiaoyang laughed, telling him the gas had already worn off. On the other side, Aunt Yang's camp was panicking too. They weren't sure if the people coming out of the woods were enemies. Some wanted to pull Jinkai to safety, while others doubted it was even really him. Aunt Yang chose violence first. She led a few men forward and attacked, hoping to catch them off guard. Shengji could have wiped them out easily, but Xiaoyang told everyone to stay calm. A few arrows flew at them, and the boss slapped them away with his bare hands. Then he shouted for the strangers to stand down, and they actually paused. Shinkai stepped between both sides and told his aunt these people weren't enemies. Aunt Yang seemed to accept that and told her men to stop firing. Shinkai explained that Xiaoyang's group came from outside the jungle. When she asked about the others, he had to admit that half his group had been killed or hurt, including Xiao Tong. When he asked to be let inside, the people in the city hesitated. The main problem was Brother Chong and Shengji. Xiaoyang stepped in and tried to reassure them. He even asked the two mutants to help calm everyone down. Brother Chong took off his mask and said that even if he looked ugly, he was gentle. Shengji just flexed and let everyone stare. Xiaoyang was embarrassed. He really thought they'd act normal. After a long pause, Aunt Yang finally let them in. Back at the steel mill, Shanshan returned to the front gate after checking on the west side. He radioed old Li to open the gate. Before going in, her sharp senses caught something hostile nearby. It was faint and vanished fast. The half-monsters quickly hid their bloodlust again. Old Li opened the door himself for Shanshan. Once she was inside, the half-monsters finally relaxed. They had almost been found out. All three sensed that Shanshan was an evolver, and a pure one at that. They were shocked, but all they could think about was how good she would taste and how much stronger eating her might make them. Shanshan went straight to the infirmary to check the men attacked earlier. Xiaoyang had put her in charge of the infection inhibitors in case something like this happened. Old Li wasn't sure. His men had been bitten for hours and still showed no symptoms, so the attacker probably wasn't a zombie. With everyone confused, Red claimed she knew what was going on. She said mutated humans had gathered in the western suburbs to hunt people. Old Li had never seen her before, but she sounded like she knew something. Crying, Red added that these mutants were smarter and worse than zombies, and that she only escaped one because she found a bike. To old Li, that sounded like she had brought the problem right to his doorstep. Red quickly apologized, and the guard simping for her instantly defended her and blamed old Li instead. Li Hongli said he only wanted intel on the enemy, so Red warned them to brace for another attack. Since Red barely had any clothes on, old Li told her to rest first. As everyone else left, Shanshan stayed behind and kept watching the newcomer. She couldn't explain it, but Red gave her a bad feeling. In the end, she blamed it on stress and paranoia from all the pressure lately. Back in City S, the group reached a high-rise standing in green smog. Xiaoyang asked why the survivors chose this place instead of stronger buildings nearby. The answer was simple. Down on the ground, people die. The green fog gets thicker closer to street level, and too much of it can turn a person into a plant mutant. Only buildings 10 floors up or more are safe enough. They climbed the stairs while talking. At the top, Xiaoyang finally met Professor He and filled him in on the jungle, the outside world. and the trouble in the other city. After that, he brought Brother Chong and Shengji in to meet the people living in the high-rise. As for T City, B City, or places overseas, nobody had any news. So far, there was no organized rescue. Everyone was on their own. Then Xiaoyang showed the professor the strange potato he had dug up and asked what it was. Professor He said it was the tuber of those plant mutants. It can be eaten, and the people here had been surviving on it for a while. Without the food shortage, they never would have touched something so creepy looking. Still, finding a usable food source was huge. Their talk was cut short by an emergency outside. Without the food shortage, they never would have touched something so creepy looking. Still, finding a usable food source was huge. Their talk was cut short by an emergency outside. A huge group of plant mutants was gathering around the building. They called those enemies flower carts. That name made Professor He turn grim. This thing could wipe out everyone in the building today. He shouted for everyone to listen. Women and children had to get to the top floor and lock themselves in sealed rooms, while anyone who could fight needed to arm up. He'd rather save a few than lose everyone. His people obeyed without hesitation and prepared to risk their lives for the settlement. Professor He figured Xiaoyang was still young, so he told him to hide upstairs too. Xiaoyang just laughed and said he'd be fine. He was actually curious what kind of monster had everyone this scared. Professor He warned that if they didn't find the flower cart's main body fast, they were all as good as dead. The flower cart can control other plant mutants. It likely uses something like pheromones to launch organized attacks, and its main body had to be nearby and angry. To the professor's horror, Xiaoyang opened the window. Then he pulled out a rifle from thin air and decided to test the enemy first. From above, he started sniping the plant mutants one by one. Just as expected, they were absurdly tough and could heal deadly wounds in moments. Still, Xiaoyang wanted to see where that healing finally broke. He focused all his shots on one mutant and riddled it with bullets. Like the others, it kept standing for a moment. Then it finally dropped. From that test, it looked like one mutant took about 2 full magazines to kill. No wonder everyone feared them. But Zhang Xiaoyang had almost endless guns and ammo in his personal space, and pulling out dozens of crates already stunned the survivors. Then he tore the nailed crates open with his bare hands. That left the high-rise residents even more shocked. Inside were the plant's natural enemy, Molotov cocktails. Xiaoyang told them to use those if any mutants got inside. Then without another word, he jumped out the window. His 2 mutant brothers jumped after him. All 3 dove off the 16th floor like it was nothing. And yes, they landed in full style right in front of the ugly plant monsters. The creatures rushed them the second they got close. Xiaoyang answered by driving a hand into one mutant's skull. With one hard yank, he tore its head clean off. Brother Chong was just as dangerous. He was fast, strong, and fought a lot like the boss. Shengji brought pure chaos. His tentacles did most of the work, and it was brutal. Professor He finally realized how foolish he sounded when he told Xiaoyang to hide. Thankfully, Li Cheng was upstairs helping everyone deal with any stragglers. He took charge and told anyone confident enough to grab Molotovs and guard the stairwell. For the first time in months, the people in the high-rise actually felt hope. Down below, Xiaoyang finished off the remaining plant mutants. Then he had his mutant brothers check the bodies for cores. As for him, he wanted to find this flower cart himself. The few mutants that slipped past were quickly burned down, and thanks to Xiaoyang's group, nobody died this time. While everyone else secured the high-rise, Xiaoyang followed his instincts deep into the woods and finally found the thing everyone feared. It was the flower cart. This main body was the source of City S's nightmare, and the one coughing out the green fog. Suddenly, every nerve in his body screamed at him to move. Xiaoyang trusted that instinct and dodged a killing blow. The force behind it felt comparable to Shengji's tentacles. Luckily, he'd gotten pretty good at fighting tentacle-type monsters lately. All he had to do was overpower it. Sensing danger, the flower cart blasted out a thick cloud of spores. Too bad for it. Xiaoyang wasn't falling for that trick again. Before the spores reached him, he took a deep breath and held it while the area filled with green clouds. Then the flower cart started squirming wildly. Its lower body opened up, and legs pushed out from underneath. The thing was trying to run on all those nasty limbs, but that wasn't getting it away from Xiaoyang. He moved his fingers, formed a sigil, and used the slave mark. That new power wrapped around the mutant beast. A few minutes later, the people in the building were stunned to see the flower cart's true body arrive. Professor He was shaken. He hadn't forgotten how deadly that twisted monster was. After parking his new servant outside, Xiaoyang walked back like nothing happened and just asked Shengji and Brother Chong if they had gathered all the mutant cores. In his broken speech, Shengji said they got plenty of cores, and Brother Chong translated. One mutant buddy sounded like he was chewing rocks, and the other made even less sense, so talking to them was tiring. Then Professor He asked the obvious question: why was a flower cart parked outside the building? Xiaoyang casually said it was on their side now. To prove it, he led the survivors outside and showed them they had nothing to fear. Professor, he forced himself to step closer to the strange creature. He touched it nervously and asked how Xiaoyang had tamed something like this. Ignoring that, Xiaoyang asked what a botanist like him thought of the plant. Professor, he said that even though it had mutated beyond recognition, it should still keep some plant instincts. Plants compete just as fiercely as animals, only instead of prey, they fight for sunlight. Trees grew taller to grab more light, while lower plants adapted in other ways. That's why thick forests usually have less grass below. His guess was that the flower cart turned violent because it lost that early advantage during mutation. Without sunlight, it adapted to feed on living creatures instead. Just then, the flower cart stretched out a vine. It reached toward Xiaoyang, and Li Cheng instantly pulled a tiny knife to protect his boss. Xiaoyang told him to relax and let it happen. With the slave mark on it, the thing couldn't betray him. The vine was aiming for his spine. When it touched his skin, it sent something straight into his nerves. The flower cart confirmed Professor He's guess. City S had become a war zone for mutant plants, and they now fed on animals and humans. Now that the giant mutant plant served him, its survival had become Xiaoyang's responsibility. To show trust, the flower cart opened up and revealed its glowing core. Then it willingly offered that soft core to its new master. The moment it touched Xiaoyang's palm, it merged into his body. Li Cheng, of course, got worried, but this was just a ritual that sealed the bond between master and servant. To test what he gained from it, Xiaoyang flicked out his hand. A mass of vines burst out from nowhere with heavy force. They wrapped around a nearby tree and locked it tight. With one thought, Xiaoyang crushed the thick trunk in half. Shengji was stunned. The vines looked even stronger than his tentacles. At that moment, Xiaoyang unlocked the gardener achievement and gained 150 points. While City S was being freed, the Western steel mill came under attack from an unknown threat. Red, the cannibal mutant, kept setting traps, and the steel mill survivors kept falling for them. A knock came at her door, so she put on a weak, helpless face and opened up for a man bringing her a late-night snack, one she found very appealing. She was very good at acting like a girl who needed saving. The guy played the caring hero, acting worried about the new girl. Red pulled him closer and thanked him in a way that clearly tempted him. He took that as an invitation. The idiot lunged at her, but Red quickly backed into her room like she was scared. To his credit, he apologized for reading the moment wrong. But that wasn't it. Red just wanted to move things outside since the walls were thin. Of course, he followed. It worked perfectly. Outside the mill, the two got loud and carried on. When it was over, the guy was completely hooked, dazed by Red's looks and skill. They'd already swapped plenty of bodily fluids, and he still hadn't even asked her name. Then the mood broke when he spotted something nearby. He noticed a torn sleeve from his friend's jacket sticking out of a dirty plastic drum. When he lifted the lid, he found mangled guts and a bloody mush he could barely recognize. That was when Red attacked, locking her claws around his neck. At least the poor guy got one last good time before she ate him. Outside the steel mill, Red's group was still hiding nearby. Musclehead got caught sleeping and took a hit to the back of the head. He was supposed to be on watch, and Baldy had no patience for someone nodding off. This mattered. They had to be ready when Red finally gave the signal to attack. While they argued, Blondie started getting nervous about Red not signaling back. It was starting to look like Red was keeping all that fresh meat in the mill for herself. So the three went around the factory to look for signs of that selfish traitor. Their sharp sense of smell led them to drums full of blood and guts. That confirmed it. Red had gone solo. Blondie told them the fix was simple. If Red could seduce her way in, so could she. Baldy hated the idea. One glutton was bad enough. Sending another one in sounded stupid. Musclehead stepped between them and argued that Blondie had a point. She was their best shot at getting inside now. Baldy knew that too. He finally agreed, but warned that if Blondie pulled the same stunt as Red, he'd storm in and kill both traitors, even if it cost him his life. After a bit more talk, they reused the same plan that had worked before. Blondie put on a helpless act and knocked at the gate. The guards at the entrance immediately raised their pistols. Nearly crying, Blondie claimed zombies had chased her and she barely made it out alive. The guards looked her over and got excited, saying they were lucky to find another beauty so soon after the last one. Some even thought Blondie had the better body. They were about to let her in without a proper check when Red suddenly rushed out and warned them not to trust her. She claimed Blondie was the mutant that had tried to eat her before. Red screamed for them to shoot the flesh-eating witch. Believing her, the guards emptied their guns at Blondie and drove her away from the gate. Blondie felt the bullets tear through her body, leaving deadly wounds. Full of holes, she stumbled and accidentally exposed what was under her short dress. The guards ran inside to grab gasoline and burn the body. That gave Blondie just enough time to recover and escape. Somehow all three left without guarding her while they reported everything to Brother Lee and Sister Sean. By then, Blondie had already dragged herself back to her group. After using the last of her strength to return, she collapsed at their feet. Knowing she was damaged now, Blondie begged them to spare her and swore she'd obey from now on. Baldy didn't care. They were the same kind, and they all knew what it meant to be compromised. He grabbed a huge boulder with one hand and raised it over his head. They could always make another plan to get the settlement's food, but before he could smash her skull, Baldy was the one whose blood spilled first. Musclehead stepped in and slit his throat from behind. Baldy's bald head dropped to the ground. Musclehead licked the blade clean and enjoyed the blood. Blondie thanked him again and again, and he said she'd get Baldy's arm and leg, just enough meat to heal a little. He planned to eat the rest himself. Blondie knew greed drove him. If she had died instead, he'd only get scraps. By killing Baldy, he took control and the biggest share. Back inside the steel mill, the leaders finally noticed more and more people going missing. Li Hongli was under pressure. What kind of leader lets this happen right under his nose? Fed up with the mystery, Shanshan decided to handle it herself. She searched the outer area of the mill for any clue. It didn't take long for her to find the the bloody drums filled with butchered remains. She brought armed men over, and they confirmed part of their man's torn jacket was mixed in with the gore. They even spotted Horndog's shoe floating inside. Red started feeling cornered. Baldy's group must have found her dumping spot and left the evidence exposed. Shan found no signs of a fight in or around the settlement, and the night had been quiet, so she turned to the newcomer and asked what it all meant. Realizing she was done for, Red started trembling. Her usual tricks wouldn't work on Shan. Sister Shan drew her blade at once and hurled it straight at Red's vital spots. For a second, Red felt death coming. Just before it hit her chest, Red snapped out of it and dodged with inhuman speed. The knife flew past and wrecked trees behind her. Shan had been the only one suspicious of Red from the start, and now she had proof. Red knew she was fully exposed now. Her easy food scheme was over. Desperate, she lunged at the nearest man she could reach. She pulled out a hidden knife and took him hostage, threatening to cut his throat if anyone moved. Shan shot back that if Red killed one more of their people, she wouldn't leave alive. Red couldn't stand being cornered by a young woman. If it came down to it, she'd die taking a few people with her. She slowly backed away from the crowd, still threatening to open her hostage's neck. Once she got far enough, Red snatched the man's gun and kicked him away. She shot him in the ass out of spite and ran from the steel mill. Staying calm, Shan raised her gun and took careful aim. She fired and hit the cannibal several times. Red kept running even as blood poured from the new holes in her body. Not wanting to let her escape, Shan rushed for her bike to chase her down. Li Hongli stopped her. They didn't know if Red had partners waiting outside, so the settlement had to lock down first. Shan quickly ordered stricter screening for all new survivors. Newcomers would stay in quarantine at the safe house, and she would return to the main fortress to report the threat. Honestly, Li Hongli was impressed by how capable and decisive she was in a mess like this. Back in S-City's woods, regular plant-mutated undead were still wandering around, not for long. To test his new power, Zhang Xiaoyang led the group with Shengji, tearing through enemies with vines and tentacles. For those two monsters, clearing the area was almost effortless. That let Brother Chong and Li Qing gather the cores and burn the bodies. Soon they had a huge bonfire fed by undead corpses. Professor, he wasn't sure whether to feel protected by their savior or pressured by how strong he was. Xiaoyang's Utopia mission was speeding up and earning him plenty of points. His whole group was in top form. With plant mutants no longer much of a threat, Xiaoyang's team and the S-City survivors soon reached the main fortress. Uncle Sheng welcomed them and quickly filled the young boss in on what happened while he was away. Xiaoyang introduced the survivors from S-City, led by Professor He from the Agricultural and Forestry Academy. For now, the S-City group would stay at the fortress. Once things were ready, they'd move to the edge of the city jungle and build a third settlement there. Right then, Shan arrived on her bike. Urgently, she reported everything that happened at the Western Steel Mill and suggested the same tighter security for the main fortress. Professor He's group wouldn't need the strict screening, since the boss had already vouched for them. When Xiaoyang heard the steel mill had lost a few people, he wasn't worried. In fact, he saw it as good news. The more danger his Utopia faced, the bigger the mission rewards. And right then, the fourth part of the Villain Vanquisher mission had begun. Clearing the western outskirts would earn him 120 points. Meanwhile, Red barely made it back to the hiding spot after escaping with her life. Then she heard footsteps, and her dark heart skipped a beat. It was the recovering Blondie, standing over her and laughing at how badly she had failed. Injured and crawling back to the same people she had betrayed, Red tried to call it all a big misunderstanding. But after nearly getting Blondie killed, death was a fair sentence. Blondie told Musclehead to beat Red to death so they could at least eat her. Instead, Musclehead swung his rusty pipe at Blondie. Just like before, he attacked from behind and took out his own teammate. Blondie should have known better than to turn her back on a guy like him. Knowing she was finished, Blondie warned Red not to trust him. He only helps himself and will betray anyone the second it benefits him. Red didn't care, as long as she wasn't the one getting smashed. In one last attempt to survive, Blondie tried reminding Musclehead that Red had betrayed them too. But for cannibal mutants like them, words mean nothing. When that failed, Blondie even offered him her body. Too bad for her, Musclehead liked redheads, not blondes. He killed her with his bare hands. Then he pulled his usual trick. He gave Red an arm and a leg to heal up while he ate the rest. Back at the main fortress, the leaders were talking about the cannibals roaming the west. Li Cheng had once been an unaware cannibal himself, but Shan's report made it clear these ones were far worse. They'd lost every human limit. Selfish, reckless, angry, greedy, bloodthirsty, and hooked on human flesh. Xiaoyang marked them as a problem to handle later, but something else needed attention first. Li Cheng would head back to the steel mill to reinforce it and fix the security issues. 2 months passed without any big trouble. Deep in the woods, a group of survivors decided they had to move or die where they were, so they packed what little food and supplies they had and set out through the forest. They left at night, hoping to avoid the plant monsters that were more active in the daytime. It didn't matter. A whole pack of mutant plants still found them. The first attack wiped out many of them on the spot. The rest ran for their lives only to get surrounded. There was one way out, but strange sounds were coming from that path. Since they would die either way, they took the risky route. After running for miles, the survivors were completely exhausted. Then a huge tree suddenly crashed down toward them. They scattered in fear, wondering what kind of monster could knock over a whole tree. When the dust cleared, they found people cutting trees with chainsaws. One survivor recognized Zhu Xinkai among them. Xinkai was shocked to see an old friend, Liang. He quickly explained how they had settled in M City. Their reunion was cut short by the sound of mutant plants getting closer. Seeing Liang panic, Xinkai laughed and told him not to worry about a few plant freaks. He calmly pulled out a radio and reported a creature sighting in his squad's zone. Then he told Liang and the others to come over and stay out of the way. A moment later, the anti-plant squad arrived in full gear with flamethrowers. Liang and his group were stunned. The squad lined up and opened fire, turning the mutant plants into barbecue. The flames burned through them while the creatures screamed and growled. Li Cheng, Brother Chong, and Sheng Jie also showed up, though they hardly needed to do anything for weak threats like this. Liang couldn't believe humans had built a force this strong, and it was all thanks to Chief Xiaoyang. Then he saw Li Cheng standing with the two mutants and nearly lost it. Xinkai and the others were already used to them. Brushing off Liang's fear, Xinkai invited him to join the settlement and meet the chief. The third settlement on the jungle's edge had grown smoothly. They'd even built a full farm. Liang could hardly believe it. While his group had been living in fear, these people had figured out farming in a jungle full of plant monsters. And they weren't growing normal crops. They were raising mutated ones. When Liang picked up a mutated potato, he freaked out and threw it away. Xinkai explained that the crops came from the same kind of plants as the monsters, but they had been changed into high-yield food that was easy to harvest. Like so many other things, it was possible because of Chief Xiaoyang. Professor He led the project and turned mutated crops into a reliable food source. With Xiaoyang's link to Flower Cart, changing crop traits became much easier. They were already close to harvest season. The land clearing was going well. Professor He handled expansion, and Li Cheng guarded the area. Now that the third settlement was stable, it was time to deal with the cannibals in the west. At M City's border, two people walked around like the place belonged to them. It was Zhang Xiaoyang and Brother Chong. The muzzled mutant warned his chief they were being followed, and Xiaoyang could tell the group behind them was about as strong as Zhang Qi's team. Their plan was simple. Feed Brother Chong. As expected, the hunters were Red and Musclehead, waiting for a chance to pounce. Before Red could rush in, Musclehead stopped her from attacking blindly. From where they were hiding, he could tell they were too late. Another group had already surrounded the prey. A big pack of cannibal mutants closed in on Xiaoyang and Brother Chong. They were practically drooling over such high-quality meat. This rabid bunch had never seen a pure evolver like Xiaoyang. They thought eating him might give them a huge upgrade. And since Brother Chong followed him, they guessed Xiaoyang could control zombies. Maybe they could steal that power by eating him too. Red could only click her tongue and back off for the stronger group. Musclehead, though, wanted to stay and watch. Less than a minute later, everything below turned into chaos. Brother Chong tore through the evolvers like a beast set loose. Xiaoyang moved with calm precision, taking heads with every swing. The survivors of that idiot squad ran the second they realized they were the prey. One unlucky cannibal tried escaping by climbing the building where Red and Musclehead were hiding. That put them in real danger. If Xiaoyang looked their way, they were dead. And that fear almost came true when Xiaoyang lifted a huge steel beam like it weighed nothing. He hurled it with perfect aim, sending it flying like a bullet. The beam speared the fleeing evolver through the back and tore him apart. Nobody survives Xiaoyang's pipe. Red and Musclehead were nearly caught in it too, getting splashed with blood and guts. Putting his blade away, Xiaoyang was pleased by the unexpected haul. Strong cannibals like these should have fully formed variant cores. Up above, Red and Musclehead didn't dare move or even breathe until the monster below was gone. Once they were sure the young man and the muzzled mutant had left, they figured hiding had paid off. They could eat the high-quality corpses left behind. As they kept patrolling the western edge, Xiaoyang complained that Brother Chong wasted meat and didn't eat enough. Then he sensed movement inside a nearby abandoned building. He turned toward it and summoned his blade again. Since he had already been noticed, a random guy stepped out of the dark with a crossbow and warned them not to come closer. One look told Xiaoyang the man was just an ordinary civilian. Even while threatening them, Four Eyes looked terrified to pull the trigger. So Xiaoyang tried talking first. Startled by the slightest movement, Four Eyes panicked and fired a bolt. That kind of weapon couldn't threaten him at all. Xiaoyang casually caught the bolt out of the air. Seeing his only weapon made useless crushed Four Eyes' confidence. In the next instant, Xiaoyang crossed dozens of meters in a single step. To stop any more trouble, he snatched the crossbow from the man's hands. Ignoring Four Eyes, he called for the others inside to come out and assured them he wasn't a cannibal. Just like he thought, about a dozen civilians were hiding there, all scared to death. At this point in the apocalypse, Xiaoyang found it impressive that they had survived without turning to cannibalism. For now, he decided to travel with them through the night. Four Eyes explained they were trying to reach a steel mill in the southern suburbs called Shifeng. They had heard a radio message about a settlement there accepting survivors. But along the way, they realized normal people couldn't survive the cannibals roaming the suburbs. Later, they heard about another human settlement in the northern outskirts that was actively hunting cannibals, and the rumor seemed real. People said the place was called Jifeng, and that its leader was strong enough to fight 5 or 6 cannibals alone without breaking a sweat. Still, the western outskirts had at least 1,000 cannibals. One man couldn't protect everyone. Four Eyes believed cannibal evolvers usually hunted alone and rarely grouped up, though some in his party disagreed. Four Eyes insisted that if cannibals really worked together in big groups, survivors like them would have been wiped out by now. But one man disagreed. He still wanted to go to Zifeng Steel Mill and hoped to find his brother there, even if the odds were almost zero. He also worried the people at Zifeng might be cannibals. Four Eyes wasn't completely wrong though. The old rulers of the steel mill really were monsters, but their new leader was standing right in front of them. Xiaoyang calmly told them he killed the evolvers who used to control the place and changed how it was run. Hearing that, the man tearfully said his brother was Li Cheng, a former deputy officer from the southern suburbs, the same Li Cheng now in the chief's inner circle.
Guys, that's the end of the video. If you liked this video, please leave a comment in the comment section. Also subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon. Like the video and share it too. Thank you for watching and see you next time again.